Second part. Chapter 21, Professional Change, Fighting God Inheritance, Triple Magical Skills. When he returned to school, the office of Bishop Zhang Zhenyue was already full of people. Not only Feng Shi's other personal instructors and school principals, but also the Lord of the City of Bunker No. 7 is here. In addition to them, there were 3 imposing men wearing the same style of blue uniforms with gold patterns, who were talking to them. The 3 of them are all men, 1 is an old man with a beard, and 2 are middle-aged. 1 is a burly man with a rough and fierce face, and the other is a handsome uncle with a cold face and a slender figure. The first time Feng Shi saw them, she knew that these were the members of the Sky Council who were escorting the Fighting God Inheritance Crystal. There is no doubt that the 3 of them are legendary powerhouses. The Sky Council is the highest governing body of the human race. All the legendary strong men of the human race have a seat in it. For example, the Lord of the City is one of the members. The position of speaker above the members is held by God-level experts in turn. This is basic information that every human race knows. It is as common as ordinary people knowing the existence of the United Nations. There is nothing surprising about it. After Feng Shi and Yin Liyue entered the door, their conversation ended. The Lord City Lord first greeted Venerable Li familiarly, and then took Feng Shi to introduce the 3 saints to him. Feng Shi followed his introduction and bowed respectfully, but the attitude of the 3 saints was relatively cold, and it seemed that they were not very interested in him, the one blessed by heaven. But it's right to think about it, that's what they do, and they have come into contact with a lot of heavenly blesseds. Feng Shi has no direct interest connection with them, so naturally he feels sparse and ordinary. As for establishing a good relationship with the genius in advance, to be honest, it is not necessary for them. They also know that not all blessed ones can become legendary powerhouses. It is just a stepping stone, not even a ticket. Whether they can open the door to the legendary realm depends on their subsequent growth. In fact, most of the S-level talents either died midway or were stuck at certain levels and could not make any progress. They wasted time among others, and only a few could succeed. Otherwise, the number of legendary strong men of the human race would have increased dozens or hundreds of times, and they would have been able to take back their homeland. In this case, why do legendary powerhouses like them want to establish a relationship in advance with a newcomer who is like an ant? With this thought, they didn't even have the thought of saying a few polite words, but directly urged. Since people are already here, let's start quickly and complete the realization as soon as possible. We still have several bunkers to go to. They all said so, so the city lord and others naturally stopped delaying and immediately arranged for an empty room. After completing all the preparation procedures, Feng Shi saw the legendary old man headed by him take out a crown-shaped golden crystal the size of a football, place it in front of Feng Shi, and float it out of thin air. The divine light was bright and brilliant, touching people's hearts. Feng Shi had an inexplicable feeling for a moment, and couldn't help but be fascinated. At this time, the old man said to him, "Next, you only need to use meditation to activate your spiritual power to communicate with this crystal to open up the inheritance and enlightenment. The longer the enlightenment takes, the more there is no time limit to realize the benefits. We will wait outside. Once the enlightenment is over and you can no longer communicate for a short period of time, we will come in and collect the crystal stones. You only have one chance, so seize it." Hearing this, Feng Shi thanked her sincerely. The 3 of them turned around and left the room without returning the greeting, without even warning him not to have any evil intentions. They were confident that Feng Shi, a newcomer, could not do any bad things. Apart from anything else, this inheritance crystal was left by a god-level powerhouse. Not even they could destroy it, let alone a newcomer. It's impossible to escape with the crystal. They are not living for a living. If a newcomer could take the spar and run away under their noses, then they could commit suicide and apologize, and they would have no shame in living. However, what they didn't know was that Feng Shi had actually considered this matter. He looked at this extremely precious god-level treasure, and his thoughts suddenly changed in his eyes. If I take this crystal and communicate with my body again, and let him summon me into the real world, and my body has enough extraordinary source material to baptize this treasure, will I be able to successfully steal it and leave the thing in the real world? Already? If conditions permit, this is really possible. Unfortunately, the main body does not even have the extraordinary source of energy to summon him once, so this idea can only be shelved. For a while, Feng Shi felt quite regretful. As for what he would do after the theft was successful, he was not worried at all. It's nothing more than dying once. After resurrection, this identity can no longer be used, and you have to change your appearance. Trading one death for a god-level treasure is a good deal no matter how you look at it. It's a pity that such a good deal can't be done now. Feng Shi can only put aside his greed and start communicating with the crystal in front of him. The mental power slowly came into contact with the crystal, and Feng Shi's consciousness soon passively entered a mysterious spiritual world. This world is like a galaxy, and the sky is filled with bright golden stars. He subconsciously began to stare at these stars, and he already understood that these stars were the skills and growth insights left by the god of war. How much he could absorb depended on his own luck. He immediately wanted to seize the time to communicate with these stars and strive to gain more gains. However, before he could take action, the entire golden starry sky seemed to sense his presence and shine brightly at the same time. Endless starlight shone in, gathered around him, and completely submerged him. What's going on with this kid? In the past, those blessed by heaven could only meditate for 2 or 3 hours at most. It's been almost a day for him. Why isn't it over yet? Outside the room, the 3 legendary saints had been guarding them all day. Their originally calm attitude had already turned into confusion. Obviously, they did not expect that this realization would last so long. The fierce-faced man couldn't help but ask first, and another middle-aged saint guessed. Did something unexpected happen? Should we go in and take a look? It was the old man who thought deeply and comforted him. Don't panic. Theoretically, there is no upper limit to the enlightenment time. It can take as long as it takes. Perhaps the talent, character, and other aspects of this blessed person are in line with the requirements of Master Do Shen, so he has been given more enlightenment time. Now the energy fluctuations during communication have not stopped yet, we just have to wait patiently. The 2 of them didn't say anything after hearing this, but their eyes finally looked at the room with a little more attention. Not far away, the city lord, Venerable Yin, and the instructors, who also came here to check the situation because it took too long, also looked in the direction of the room, their eyes gradually becoming inexplicably expectant. How much benefit can this gain from such a long period of enlightenment? I'm afraid this kid is going to explode. Just after everyone waited until late at night, a burst of divine light suddenly lit up in the room where Feng Shi was, and even the door could not block it. This immediately attracted everyone's attention. They quickly stared and finally felt that the energy fluctuations in the room had subsided. The enlightenment is over. Everyone quickly opened the door and entered, only to see Feng Shi sitting cross-legged in the middle of the room, slowly opening her eyes towards them. A flash of sharp golden light instantly made these super strong men tremble in their hearts. Feng Shi looked at them, but a familiar sound sounded in his ears. Understanding the God-level inheritance crystal, you understand the special magical skill, Luo Tian Yanwu. Understanding the God-level inheritance crystal, you understand the special magical skill, Langhuan Heart Tower. Understand the God-level inheritance crystal, and you will understand the special magical skill, God of War Battle Body. Please check the specific skill effects in your personal panel. Chapter 22, Profession Change, Langhuan Xingxue. Luo Tian Yanwu. Fighting God Battle Body. Feng Shi followed the prompts and opened the personal panel, and saw 2 new skills in gold font for the first time in the skill bar. To see the effect clearly, just move your eyes, and the more you look at them, the brighter they will become. Luo Tian Yanwu, Special Growth Type Magical Skills. Each basic weapon skill you master can increase your attack damage by 5%. The higher the basic skill level, the higher the damage increase ratio. It is 5% at the entry level, 10% at the proficiency level, and 20% at the advanced level. Perfect level 50%, Palace level 100%, Legend level 300%, Myth level 1000%. Langhuan Heart Tower, Special Growth Type Magical Skills. The more basic skills you master and the higher the level, the higher the increase in hidden attributes and understanding, which can improve the learning efficiency of active combat skills and help you create your own combat skills, awakening skills, legendary combat skills, etc. Active-like combat skills. At the same time, no matter how many self-created skills you create, it will not increase the difficulty of creating other self-created combat skills of the same type. For example, after other warriors create their own awakening skills and legendary combat skills, when they want to create new awakening skills and legendary skills, they will be affected by the first ultimate move, and the difficulty will be greatly increased, and this special god the skill cancels this influence. As long as he has this ability, the protagonist can create as many awakening skills as he wants. Fighting God Battle Body, Special Growth Type Magical Skills. Every time you level up, your strength, agility, physique, attack, defense, and mental attributes will receive an additional increase. The increase is equal to the number of basic combat skills you have times 5%, and the upper limit of all energy slots and energy recovery you have. The speed is increased by 10% by the number of basic skills, and the special status skill, Fighting God Overlord, can be activated during combat. Doshin Hegemony, after turning it on, it will enter the hegemony state, all attributes will be doubled, the energy tank recovery speed will be increased tenfold, super speed regeneration will be gained, and all weapons that can be mastered within the line of sight can be controlled at the same time to fight. But the same type of weapons, you can only control one weapon at the same time. You must have the basic expertise corresponding to that weapon to control it, and the weapon type cannot be repeated. The state maintenance time is basic 60 seconds plus own level times 30 seconds plus the number of basic combat skills you possess times 30 seconds plus the proficiency level of basic combat skills times n seconds, 1 second for entry level, 10 seconds for mastery level, and 10 seconds for mastery level, level 20 seconds, perfect level 60 seconds. Hall level 300 seconds, Legend level 600 seconds, Myth level 3600 seconds. The basic cooling time is 24 hours, the longer it can be maintained, the shorter the cooling time, theoretically no cooling can be achieved. There is no doubt that these are three very awesome skills, and they perfectly match the talent of the weapon master. Any skill like this can make Feng Shi take off immediately. And now that he has obtained three of them at once, he is getting stronger so fast that he is probably going to be on a rocket. Boy Feng Shi, are you awake? A familiar voice rang in his ears, pulling Feng Shi back from his ecstatic thoughts. He saw a large group of super strong people surrounding him, their eyes full of expectation and curiosity. The burly man, one of the three legendary strong men responsible for escorting the inheritance crystal, was the first to ask. Feng Shi, right? Tell us in detail all the gains you have gained from this inheritance. We need to record it. This is one of our jobs. Hearing this, Feng Shi had no intention of hiding anything. He stood up and said, "Okay, I got 3 skills." When the strong man heard this, his eyes lit up. "Oh? There are actually 3 skills? It took me so long to master it, and I have really gained a lot." Other people present who knew the stakes had the same idea and thought it was very rare. Generally speaking, even the blessed ones cannot guarantee that they will be able to learn complete skills through inheritance. Most of the time, they will get Master Doshin's insights on a certain basic combat skill, which will make newcomers even more powerful when practicing this skill. The impact can even last until the legendary level, making it easier for his skill to break through to the legendary level. In comparison, learning skills is another benefit. It may not be more valuable than the first one, but the probability is indeed lower. There are no simple skills that can be put into the inheritance by the God of War. Whenever a newcomer learns one of them, it is equivalent to obtaining a super move at a low level, and the improvement in combat effectiveness is unimaginable. This will help newcomers upgrade quickly, and will also be helpful in understanding later awakening skills and legendary skills. They had never heard of someone like Feng Shi who inherited 3 complete skills in one go. Thinking about it, they would know how far this newcomer would surpass his peers at the beginning. But they quickly thought that there was actually a better result in the God-level inheritance, which was also the top benefit in the inheritance. Growth skills. It is a miraculous power that can make a newcomer strong from the first level to the end. It is a skill that can only be created by a God-level powerhouse. It is essentially a level higher than the legendary combat skills of a legendary powerhouse. In the history of the human race, there have been several peerless monsters who have acquired growth-type magical skills through inheritance. Each of them has amazed an era. Those who are still alive among them are regarded as the seeds of god-level powerhouses by the entire human race to be cultivated. Compared to this, the 3 skills Feng Shi inherited seemed less important. Because everyone knows that no matter how many skills you have, they can't be compared to a growth-type magic skill. To be honest, Feng Shi's enlightenment time set a new historical record. What they were looking forward to most was for him to comprehend the magical skills, but the 3 complete skills were also very good. They did not show any disappointment, but just asked, "What are the 3 skills you inherited? Please tell me briefly." Feng Shi nodded, not knowing how other geniuses understood the inheritance, but said without any concealment. The first skill is called Luo Tian Yanwu, which increases attack damage, and the second skill is called Langhuan Xinxue, which increases the success rate of self-created skills. He was very obedient. When the boss asked him to speak briefly, he really kept it simple. He said the 2 growth-type magical skills were like 2 ordinary skills. The key is that others listened carefully and didn't react, because no one had inherited these 2 skills before, and Lord Doshan himself hadn't mentioned it, so naturally they hadn't heard of it either. At this time, the big man nodded in agreement and commented, "Oh. I've never heard of skills. It's normal for one to increase damage, but it's rare for the other to increase comprehension. It's worthy of the inheritance left by Master Doshan. I wrote it down, and the third, where is this?" Feng Shi nodded and continued, "The third skill is called Fighting God Battle Body, and its effect is..." Before they finished speaking, everyone spoke together and exclaimed in unison, "What did you say?" "Times N." Feng Shi was startled, subconsciously took a few steps back, and asked with a confused face, "I said the third one is the Battle God Battle Body? Is there any problem?" They reacted with surprise on their faces and shouted excitedly, "What a big problem! This is a growth-type magical skill. Do you know what this means? After many years, the human race finally has another genius who has acquired growth-type magical skills. The last heavenly blessed who awakened the fighting god battle body has now broken through to the 7th level of the Holy Realm, right? It seems that it took him less than 100 years to get to this point. Just thinking about it makes me feel abnormal. I was actually lucky enough to witness the birth of a peerless monster. Boy Feng Shi, you are really going to soar into the sky this time." Seeing their shocked and joyful expressions, Feng Shi realized something and his eyes gradually narrowed. It seems that this so-called growth-type magic skill is more powerful than he imagined, otherwise these big guys wouldn't be so excited. And it seems that among the 3 magical skills, only the fighting god battle body has been inherited by others. The other 2 have not even been heard of by them, so they had no reaction when they first heard about them. Wanting to understand this, he moved in his heart and made the determination that was in his best interest. He deliberately pretended to be innocent and said weakly, "Is this kind of skill rare? But the 3 skills I mentioned seem to be growth-type magic skills?" As soon as these words came out, the pause button was pressed for the entire audience, and everyone's voices suddenly stopped. Chapter 23, Job Change, Air Blade Slash. Extra Energy Slot. Bunker Number 7 in the Sky Realm, a training ground exclusively for instructors. The time is the 17th day after the end of the Fighting God Inheritance. Feng Shi stood at the edge of the training ground and slowly raised the long sword in his hand towards the wooden mannequin placed on the other edge. The next moment, the sword blade in his hand began to tremble, and an invisible force compressed and condensed on the blade, as if the wind was gathering into a vortex. Whoa! Suddenly, Feng Shi suddenly took action and slashed horizontally with his sword. A colorless and translucent crescent moon arc-shaped sword energy with a touch of golden luster on the edge flew out at an extremely fast speed, spanning a distance of tens of meters in the blink of an eye, and chopped down on the wooden man stake. The thick wooden pile made of special wood was suddenly broken by everything, and the fracture fell smoothly into 2 halves. This wasn't the end yet. The sword energy continued unabated, and it hit the rock wall behind completely before it completely shattered, leaving a deep knife mark and causing stone chips to fly. Feng Shi let out a sigh of relief, opened his personal panel while sheathing his sword, and saw a new skill that had just appeared in the skill column of active combat skills. Active combat skill, Air Blade Slash, entry level. I finally learned it. Learning advanced combat skills across levels is really difficult. Feng Shi complained in his heart, but there was only joy in his heart at this time. This is a high-level combat skill that Feng Shi taught Yin Liyue in an unusual way after she won a bet. The name sounds simple, but in fact this trick is not simple at all. Because it is a combat skill that should not appear in the skill bar of low-level melee professionals. As we all know, warrior professions are engaged in close combat. In this world, this type of profession basically has no long-range damage skills in the early stage, and can only rely on hidden weapons or long-range weapons to make up for this shortcoming. Normally, warriors can only gradually master long-range attack capabilities after they understand the power of elements after level 30. If you are a swordsman or swordsman, it may be a little earlier, but it will still be around level 20. And Feng Shi is still only a first-level warrior. It is theoretically impossible to master a long-range combat skill. But now he has done it. With the help of the growth-type magical skill Langhuan Xinxue, he successfully seized the opportunity and learned the combat skills that were only theoretically possible. This Air Blade Slash is a long-range combat skill created by Yin Liyue and improved many times. From the beginning, he wanted to create a low-threshold and easy-to-use long-range combat skill for the low-level warriors of the human race. Short board. It's just that she still failed after trying hard for a long time. The reason is very simple. The most basic requirement for this kind of sword chi combat technique is that the user's own energy must be strong enough and the user must have high enough control over it. To put it simply, the energy tank is long enough. But this is what warrior professionals are not good at. The attributes they automatically improve after upgrading are mainly strength, physique, and agility. The energy slot is only passively improved, which is not comparable to those of legal professionals. For this reason, the energy slots of low-level warriors are far from enough to use such luxurious skills, and even god-level warriors cannot change this. Even the sword god, who can open the sky with one sword, cannot create a long-range sword energy slashing technique that only requires a small amount of sword energy. Yin Liyue failed, of course. Although this Air Blade Slash was excellent, it was a combat skill that could only be learned by swordsmen of at least level 25, and it did not meet her initial expectations. However, her failure does not mean Feng Shi's failure. Other ordinary warriors don't have enough energy slots. What does it have to do with him, a super idiot? Therefore, he has succeeded now, even though it took him more than 10 days to learn it and used up his remaining training time. But it was all worth it. In the process of practicing this combat skill, he gained more than just this skill. The principle of this combat skill is actually to compress one's own energy on the weapon and then swing it out. The more condensed the energy is, the higher the power will be, and the farther the flight distance and speed will be. In fact, the warrior's anger value is not particularly suitable for this skill. The most suitable ones are the swordsman's sword energy and the swordsman's sword energy. No matter how bad it is, the fighter's fighting energy value and the fighter's true energy value are better than the anger value. And Feng Shi's extra gain is. Feng Shi drew his sword again, much faster than before. An arc sword energy that also resembled a crescent moon spun through the air, much faster than the colorless sword energy just now. But this time the sword energy was translucent sky blue, with a golden streak on the edge of the blade, making it look more condensed and sharper. The blue sword energy crossed the field and struck the rock wall at the end in an instant, leaving a long and deep knife mark. The length and depth were significantly greater than the slash mark left just now. However, this was not over yet. After one strike of the sword, another long knife appeared in Feng Shi's free hand. He slashed out with another sword, slashing out a translucent light red gold-edged arc sword energy. The shape was the same and the speed was the same. The traces left on the rock wall are similar to those of the blue sword energy, and their power is about the same. Feng Shi looked at the 3 traces left on the rock wall, then nodded with satisfaction and thought to himself. It's a matter of course. Open the panel again. Below the anger value, there is also a sword energy value and a sword energy value. That was when he took advantage of the opportunity to practice this combat skill and successfully deepened his understanding of swordsmanship and swordsmanship. After the basic swordsmanship and basic swordsmanship broke through to the Desheng level, the extra energy slot was naturally opened. He was a little surprised at first, because according to common sense, it is very difficult to open the extra energy slot, and most professionals would not dare to think about it, but he opened it so easily. It wasn't until he consulted Yin Liyue that he understood that there was indeed a chance of opening additional energy slots after raising the basic skill proficiency to the super level at a low level. The lower the level, the higher the corresponding basic skill level. The greater the gap between the two parties, the greater the success rate of opening. For a monster like Feng Shi who has already practiced basic swordsmanship at the level of Desheng, it is reasonable to be able to activate additional sword energy. Even if ordinary people know this, it is impossible to do it, and it is impossible to lower the level, because if you want to break through to the Desheng level, you mainly rely on your understanding and the insights gained from actual life and death battles. It is useless to practice hard. But after level 30, the energy tank is integrated into the power of elements, and the energy quality in the body is greatly improved. The difficulty of opening the second energy tank is greatly increased, so there are actually very few people who can open additional energy tanks. They are all masters among masters. For a quasi-legendary powerhouse like Yin Liyue, just by opening an additional second energy slot and sword energy value, his combat effectiveness has greatly increased, reaching a level where it is difficult to find an opponent at the same level. A situation like Feng Shi's having 3 energy slots from the beginning can only be said to be a coincidence among coincidences. The right time, place and people are indispensable. After learning this information, under the jealous gaze of the teacher, Feng Shi had an idea in his mind. Very good. There is another bug that can cause stuck. Chapter 24, Job Change, Epic Equipment. Kongming Feng Yin. Before officially starting leveling, upgrade all the basic skills that may open additional energy slots to the adult level, and strive to open enough additional energy slots. This is the new goal Feng Shi has set for himself. But now there is a problem, that is, the newcomer training period is coming to an end, and now his new recruits need to enter the trial ground for actual combat. This means that they have to start killing monsters and leveling up, and Feng Shi is no exception. After much thought, Feng Shi could only think of one way. I can't tell, I have to play something big this time. Boy Feng Shi, news just came from the Sky Council that your resource focus has been upgraded several levels, reaching the highest level of clan training. Now you have really become the meat and potatoes of the entire human race. Even Lord Dosh and everyone has become interested in you, and you were mentioned in the meeting. In the chief instructor's office, the city lord Nangong Yen sat in Zhang Jinyue's seat with a smile on his face and praised Feng Shi enthusiastically. After the 3 saints returned to the Sky Council headquarters in Bunker No. 1 with the Fighting God Inheritance Crystal, they reported the important news that Feng Shi had inherited 3 growth skills at the same time. Although he was far away in Bunker No. 7, he could still guess how much shock this incident would cause to the top brass. No, more than 10 days later, the parliament sent him an order yesterday, asking him to do his best to protect Feng Shi, a good son of a peerless monster, and informed him of the decision to improve his treatment, asking him to give Feng Shi resource treatment increased tenfold. The salary of the heavenly blessed one is already very high, and it would be too exaggerated to increase it by 10 times. This kind of thing has never happened before. Today's exception undoubtedly proves that the top management attaches great importance to Feng Shi. With more resources on hand, Nangong Yen became more generous and said proudly. However, no matter how high the salary is, newcomers still have to complete their tasks. Tomorrow is when you enter the trial place. I have prepared the supplies that should be given to you. The rest is weapons. You have just tell me what you need and I will prepare it for you before the trial. Even if you want 100 ungraded rare weapons, I will get them for you. Feng Shi smiled when he heard this, took out a bunch of drawings he drew and handed them to him. 100 rare weapons are too wasteful, and I can't use them. Senior can help me find craftsmen to make some sophisticated weapons that I can use now. Not many, just about 20. The weapons and equipment in this world are divided into 6 levels, from low to high: ordinary level, excellent level, rare level, perfect level, epic level, legendary level. Above the legendary level, there are also god level powerful and grandmaster level forgings. The natal artifacts that can only be created by the cooperation of masters and masters, each one is exclusive to a god level powerhouse, so it cannot be classified into the regular level. As the name suggests, unleveled weapons are weapons that can be used by first-level newcomers without the need for a level threshold. They are more precious than normal weapons. The more advanced unleveled weapons are, the more rare they are. Ungraded rare weapons can already be regarded as family heirlooms, because their special features can benefit a family from generation to generation, and their added value is far higher than other rare weapons. 100 rare weapons may not be impossible for the city lord, but Feng Shi doesn't want to use the resources on such a place. It's too wasteful. For him, low-level weapons, no matter how good they are just transitional equipment, so why do you need so many of them? In comparison, the tailor-made Chiman weapons were sufficient, and the equipment was so good that it actually affected his trial plan for tomorrow. Nangong Yen took Feng Shi's drawings and looked at them, and found that the shapes and parameters of these weapons were different from conventional weapons, and looked even weirder. Some of them were completely strange weapons that he had never seen before. He didn't know what Feng Shi wanted to do, but he didn't ask too much. Anyway, it was just some sophisticated customized weapons. Using some good materials and using his arsenal, it was enough to make them in one night. He didn't even think it was enough, so he took out a simple and exquisite red-edged long sword and a bracelet and handed them to him. Is this the only requirement? Is the sophisticated level enough? Okay. Since it is your request, no problem, I will send these weapons to you tomorrow. But you also have these 2 pieces of equipment. Even if you don't use them, you can still support the scene. Otherwise, I'm afraid that others will say that I'm lining my own pockets and deducting the resources given to you by the superiors. Feng Shi curiously took it and took a look, only to find that it was an unleveled epic sword and a piece of jewelry with its own storage space, and her eyes suddenly lit up. Wind Flame, epic sword, magic sword type, enchanted with wind and fire attributes, no equipment level, no professional requirements. Sharpness 60, durability 1000, melee damage plus 15%, long-range damage plus 20%, each attack is randomly accompanied by an additional 10% fire attribute damage or 10% wind attribute damage, and has a certain chance of triggering burning and cutting. Effect: when the durability is reduced, it can absorb the magic power of wind and fire attributes and automatically recover. Additional skill: Fire Tornado. Consume more than 10% of your own energy to create a flame tornado that moves straight ahead, causing magic damage of both wind and fire attributes and intercepting the enemy's flying attacks. The more energy you invest in the fire tornado, the higher the damage. Kongming Bracelet, epic jewelry, storage type, space attribute enchantment, no equipment level, no professional requirements. Remote damage plus 10%, energy recovery speed plus 30%, and comes with 500 storage spaces. Attached skill: Space and Darkness Shield. After turning it on, you will get a shield with the same energy value as yourself. If you suffer a fatal blow that far exceeds the upper limit of the shield will break in advance and cause space collapse, completely cancelling out the damage. It takes 1 hour to recharge after the shield is broken, and actively inputting energy can reduce the cooling time by up to half an hour. 2 unleveled epic pieces of equipment, and they are also the most precious magic weapons and storage equipment. Even if Feng Shi is just a newbie, he can still estimate their value. Senior, this is too precious. He subconsciously said polite words, but Nangong Yen smiled. For a genius like you, no matter how precious the equipment is, it is worth it. These 2 pieces of equipment are the treasures I collected when I was young. They are no longer needed now, so just take them. Bar. Perform well in tomorrow's trial. Based on your strength, it is estimated that you will be promoted to level 10 soon. Then you will go to the battlefield. With these 2 pieces of equipment, you can also have more protection. After hearing this, Feng Shi stopped being pretentious, put away the equipment and wore it, solemnly expressing her gratitude. He could see that the city lord really valued him. Even if it was for early investment, he could not find any fault with this advantage. This senior made him feel respected from the bottom of his heart. However, even so, he will still cause trouble in tomorrow's trial. I hope his seniors and instructors will not be intimidated by him. Chapter 25, Job Change, Trial is also training. Early the next morning, all the newcomers, including Feng Shi, were gathered together and set off towards the trial place above the bunker. This world does not have the kind of monster-spawning dungeon in the national online game, where you can be resurrected even if you die. On the surface, there are many abyssal secret realms generated by the projection of the abyss plane in the sky, but they are not copies, they are forbidden places of death with huge risks. The so-called trial place is actually a place specially created by the strong men of the human race in order to give the fledgling newcomers an opportunity for practical training and initial leveling. Every bunker city has at least one. The trial site of bunker number 7 is a stratum space higher than the city, located in the rock formation between the city space and the surface. It was excavated and expanded to form a small and medium-sized underground ecosystem. The strong men of the human race also connected the surface through magic circles, guiding the ubiquitous abyssal evil energy on the ground into this stratigraphic space, artificially triggering the creatures inside. Demonized mutation, creating a large number of low-level monsters. The strong men in bunker number 7 will perform regular maintenance and clear out all monsters above level 15, leaving only monsters that newcomers can theoretically deal with. Monitoring spells have also been set up in the main monster gathering places in the trial land, which can better protect the safety of newcomers during the trial, and also to better examine the performance of newcomers. After the newcomers enter the trial site, they have to hunt monsters until level 10 before they can come out. During this period, they have to live in it for a period of time. During this period, the biological materials that each person can carry are limited. Therefore, this trial not only tests the newcomer's combat effectiveness and potential, but also comprehensive qualities such as wilderness survival ability, decision-making ability, adaptability and character. Everyone's trial results will be evaluated by the powerful, which will affect which legion they will enter in the future. Those who perform better will naturally be selected by better core, and their future treatment will be better. There are many specific bonus points, such as the speed of upgrading, the number and level of monsters killed, whether there are any level-up challenges, whether there is organizational ability to organize other trialists to form a team, highlights of performance in wild survival, etc. In other words, there are many things to examine. It is not necessarily that those who reach level 10 as quickly as possible are the best. Instead, those leaders who can lead the team to better complete the trial goals will be highly evaluated. Of course, the kind of monster that single-handedly kills the demons in the trial area must be the meat and potatoes that everyone is fighting for. The instructors have told all the newcomers this basic information before, so in fact, most of the trialists have already formed teams and groups of various sizes a few days in advance. Feng Shi was naturally invited by many teams, but he declined them all. Because what he wants to do in the trial ground is different from everyone else, forming a team will only get in the way. His primary purpose for participating in the trial was not to upgrade. After entering the rock tunnel, the vast trial team walked upwards for 2 hours before arriving at an empty platform space. The platform is not big, just like a school playground, and can accommodate all of them. Many magic lighting stones were dotted above the platform and on the surrounding rock walls, providing a bright lighting environment, which made the students feel relieved and in a better mood after walking in the dark tunnel for 2 hours. There is a natural crack at the end of the platform, which transmits a little dark light, as if it leads to another new world. Everyone knows that there is the entrance to the place of trial. There were not many tedious procedures before entering. The old principal with gray hair stood in front of all the students and calmly said the last words to everyone, which moved many students. Students, next is the newcomer trial that you have been waiting for a long time. Your chief instructors have already told you what you should pay attention to, but before the trial, I have one last warning that I hope you will listen to. In my heart, I know that you are very ambitious and want to do something big, perform your best in it, and gain a good future for yourself. But what I want to tell you is that your life is more important than your future. Although the monsters in the trial ground are not as dangerous as those on the surface, they are still real monsters. If you are careless and don't take it seriously, it is normal for you to die there. People die there every year, and most of them do not recognize it. With my own strength, I want to take risks and risk my life. People who die like this in the trial field have no future. They are not even as good as the students with the worst grades. All that is left to them is a sigh of regret, and they will be forgotten when they turn around. If you don't want to end up like this, then put your own life first. Before taking the risk, think about whether it is necessary to take this risk and whether you can bear the consequences of failure. I don't care how brilliant your performance is this time or how powerful you will be in the future. At this moment, I just want to see you come out alive. Only the living can talk about the future. The students listened quietly, and then watched him walk away calmly to make way to the trial place, with something more in their eyes. Feng-shi suddenly understood something from the perspective of a bystander. Why is it the old principal who speaks this passage? Because he is the most suitable. The instructors have only been with the students for a month, but the principal has sent away generations of newcomers. He is the instructor most familiar to the students and known to all students. Okay, everyone is here. Enter the channel in order according to the current queue. I announce that the trial has begun. With a loud shout, all the students' eyes became firm again and they marched towards the passage with neat steps. As the strongest member of the Mono-War team, Feng-shi stood in the front row. He was also the first to walk into the rift and see the true appearance of the trial ground. It was a vast dark world. The top of the rock, which is hundreds of meters high, is covered with luminous ores and moss, emitting a faint blue and light green light, providing the main light source for this world. Various strange-shaped plants grow sparsely or densely on the ground, some of which also emit light, but there are not many tall trees. Among the plants, some flickering shadows can be faintly seen, reminding everyone of the unknown dangers hidden among them. Overall, it looks like a strange forest that stays in the dark all year round, dreamy and quiet. The scenery is surprisingly good. Feng-shi commented in his heart, then silently took out a black stone necklace and put it on his neck. The next moment, he suddenly stepped forward and rushed into the forest without hesitation. He didn't even say hello to the students who were forming a team around him, leaving them stunned for a moment. At the same time, in the platform space outside, City Lord Nangong and a group of instructors gathered together and stood in front of a crystal screen to watch. The scene inside is exactly like the one in the trial field. There are many more screens like this around, and there are even virtual screens formed purely by magic. It's just that only this screen has the most people watching, and they are all big guys. They happen to see Feng-shi taking out the necklace and putting it on herself, and their expressions all changed. Isn't that a necklace that suppresses upgrades? Why did he wear it during the trial? What does this brat want to do? Only Yin Liyue reacted first, her eyes widened slightly, she thought of a possibility, and suddenly said in surprise. This kid wants to speed up his basic skill level through the battle between life and death in the trial ground. The 2 extra energy slots are not enough for him, and he wants to open more. After hearing this, everyone else reacted one after another, and then their expressions all changed, each one looking weirder than the last. But their thoughts at this time are the same, that is. Greedy. So greedy. This kid's thirst for power has reached an outrageous level. Why is he so greedy? Chapter 26, Job Change. The difficulty of the trial is not high, I will do it myself. In the dark fluorescent forest, a vigorous figure shuttled through it, ignoring the possible dangers, and only advanced all the way into the depths. Brush. 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 Suddenly, several swift shadows sprang out from the grass in all directions, surrounding the human figure with lightning speed, and accurately grasped the flaw in his leap that made the man unable to move in the air. Like a group of experienced hunters, they struck him with one blow. Must kill. However, the besieged figure reacted instantly, waving both hands at the same time, launching a circle of tiny darts, hitting the 4 attackers. The small hidden weapon hit the body, but it exploded with a force that cannot be underestimated. The bodies of the 4 attackers were immediately beaten to the point where their movements were deformed, and they also let out painful wails. A flaw appeared in the perfect encirclement on the spot. The figure in the air fell down, and the light golden light in his hand hit one of the attackers on the head. There was a crisp sound of broken bones on the spot. Feng Shi landed on the ground and danced the nunchaku in his hand into a wave of stick flowers. He stepped on the body of a wolf monster under his feet and turned slightly sideways to look at the 3 living attackers behind him. Yuyan Wolf? A trial monster around level 5? After recognizing their identities, Feng Shi's expression turned cold. They are not qualified, there is no need to waste time. The next moment, Feng Shi's free hand threw out a hidden weapon again, inevitably hitting them. The power of each blow is not something that a seriously injured level 5 monster can withstand, not to mention the noble real damage attached to it. In an instant, the 3 monsters died suddenly and died on the spot. Then Feng Shi hung the nunchaku around his neck, took out a gorgeous yet simple red sword, and continued to move forward in the dense forest without even looking at the corpse of the monster on the ground. Monsters will not directly produce extraordinary equipment, but extraordinary materials can be collected from their corpses, which can be brought back to life professionals to build equipment. Flesh is also an extraordinary material that can be used for cooking, refining medicine, etc., and it can also be used in trials. A food source for the trials. The corpses of the 4 monsters are still very useful to newcomers, and it would be a waste to throw them away directly. But in Feng Shi's eyes, time is the most precious thing, and the time spent cleaning up the corpses might as well be used on the road. And what he does next is truly extravagant. However, he saw that while he was running fast, he pulled out the enchanted sword in his hand and held it directly in his hand. When he encountered 2 dense plants blocking the way, he slashed them with his sword without hesitation. Either the sky blue sword energy, the light red sword energy, or the invisible anger, will follow his movements and throw out an arc sword light from the blade, rotating and cutting all the way forward. Whether it was weeds, shrubs, or unlucky low-level monsters, they were all cut into 2 pieces by the slash of the arc sword light, clean and crisp. Every time he swings his sword, he can forcibly open a wide path, destroying everything and being unstoppable. He ran like this at full speed, while using this method to clear a path for himself to facilitate his journey. This scene silenced the big guys who were watching the whole process outside the trial area. After a while, they all looked at the city lords Nangong Yen and Yin Liue who were standing together, and asked with strange expressions. Nangong City Lord, is that the offhand weapon Wind Flame Demon sword you used before? Venerable Yin, this seems to be your own air blade slash. Have you successfully improved it? The expressions of the 2 big guys were speechless at this time, and their eyes were quite complicated. The corner of Nangong Yan's mouth twitched, and he forced a smile and said, I don't need it anymore, and it's just a souvenir. It's better to give it to him to use his spare energy, but I didn't expect. Unexpectedly, this kid actually used his treasured magic sword on the road. He now has the illusion that his precious daughter, who has been rich for many years, is treated as a maid by Will-o'-the-Wisp Huang Mao, and his intestines have begun to turn green. And Yin Liue's expression was not much better. When they asked about it, she replied angrily. There was no improvement, I just mentioned it casually, and he insisted on learning it. I couldn't help it, so I taught him it again, and he really learned it. It's none of my business that he is a monster himself. I just didn't expect that a newcomer like him would dare to use this kind of trump card combat skill that consumes a lot of money for him in such a place. What the hell was he thinking? After listening to this, Chief Instructor Zhang Zhenyue suddenly speculated, normal people would definitely not do this. I don't believe that he, a newcomer, already has enough energy in his body to squander it like this. So, could he deliberately use up the energy? Try your best to suppress your own strength to the lowest, and then challenge the strongest monster in the trial in the worst state, so as to force yourself to break through the limit and seek a breakthrough between life and death. After everyone heard this, combined with Yin Liue's initial speculation, they quickly understood Feng Shi's purpose. For a moment, their eyes began to twinkle. Based on their understanding of Feng Shi, it is really possible for this kid to do such crazy things. The matter was actually very obvious at this point. Yin Liue looked at the young man running wildly on the screen, and the corners of his mouth suddenly rose a little for some reason. This crazy boy is getting crazier and crazier. But, he is indeed the most interesting genius I have ever seen. Let me see how far you can go. Just as she was thinking secretly in her heart, an instructor's voice suddenly sounded, a little surprised. Look, he stopped. He was so carelessly close to the water source at the most dangerous river. Wait a minute. What is he doing? He threw away the sword. What? City Lord Nangong Yen took a closer look, and his face suddenly turned darker. But he saw that Feng Shi had already run all the way to a river that ran through the dense forest, and stopped here. His arrival immediately attracted the attention of various large monsters near the water source. Shadow leopard, blue light tiger, rock-armored tortoise, two-headed devil lizard, blue-striped python. All kinds of dangerous monsters above level 10 slowly approached Feng Shi and surrounded him with eager eyes. However, Feng Shi still looked calm and unconcerned, and did not retreat, but instead made a puzzling move. However, he suddenly threw out the wind-flamed demonic sword in his hand. Instead of throwing it at any monster, it spun and flew towards a big tree not far away. The red sword blade was inserted neatly into the tree trunk, which was regarded as an attack, causing the flame magic power attached to the magic sword to automatically overflow and enter the tree trunk along the blade. Boom! The magic power exploded, the flames rose, and the entire tree was instantly ignited. The fire shot into the sky, directly illuminating the area by the river, dispersing the original darkness and providing a better lighting environment. Feng Shi casually took off the nunchaku hanging around his neck, and took out an oriental stick from the storage space with his other hand. He opened his posture and tilted his head at the monsters in the audience, silently provoking him. Roar! The next moment, roars sounded at the same time, and the angry large monsters swarmed forward, scrambling to eat this arrogant human alive. Chapter 27, Professional Change, Beat the Beasts with a Stick. Perfect Stick Skills. Roar. Ouch. Hiss. Ah, fight. In the dark fantasy forest, there were loud roars of beasts, mixed with the sound of some sticks and strange shouts, forming a noisy piece of music that drowned out the sound of gurgling water and broke the surrounding silence. On the bank of this dark dense forest, a huge tree burned blazingly. The rising fire tore apart the surrounding darkness, illuminating an exciting and somewhat comical battlefield. Under the swaying firelight, the figure of a young man shuttled between a group of huge beasts. He holds an oriental stick in his left hand and flexibly swings the nunchaku in his right hand. Facing the siege of wild beasts, his movements are agile and full of power. Each of the beasts that besieged him was huge, several times bigger than the boy. They had gnarled muscles, thick skin, and fierce aura. They were faintly exuding an evil and filthy demonic aura, and their eyes were even more glowing with bloodthirsty light. They continued to attack, trying to tear the boy's body apart with their claws and fangs, chewing up his flesh and blood. However, due to the lack of effective coordination between these beasts, their attacks often conflict with each other, giving the boy an opportunity. He used his speed and flexibility to skillfully dodge and move among the beasts. Every jump and roll he made was just right to avoid the attacks of the beasts. He could even step on their bodies to avoid the attacks of other beasts. Not only do they dodge, the boy is also always looking for opportunities to attack, and does not miss their every flaw, trying to counterattack as effectively as possible. The oriental stick in the left hand is like a smart snake, turning and striking as the arm and wrist turn, drawing various afterimages in the air, and accurately hitting the joints or head of the beast. At the same time, his nunchucks were also dancing in the air, with howling wind and golden afterimages, like short golden lightning, hitting the monsters, making dull explosions, making them howl again and again, becoming more manic. Although due to the large level gap, this kind of ordinary stick blow without any combat skill effect does not cause much damage to these rough-skinned monsters, but the strange thing is that every blow makes them roar in pain. It seems that there is power in it that makes them unable to defend themselves. In other words, the damage caused by the teenager to them seems to be much higher than imagined. Of course, it is also very insulting. In the chaotic battlefield, the boy's movements were as graceful as a dance, as steady and powerful as a martial arts master, and as precise as a scalpel, making this battle between man and beast an impeccable one. Fighting Art Exhibition. As the battle continued, the situation remained firm and it was difficult to tell the outcome. The boy who seems to have the upper hand has actually been tensing up, adjusting his body and strength precisely, and not daring to relax at all. This consumes a lot of energy and physical strength. In fact, he is far from what he seems on the surface. So easy to do. There were quite a few injuries all over his body. The Warcraft were not feeling well either, and began to show a bit of exhaustion and listlessness. After all, no matter how thick-skinned they are, they cannot be exempted from the real damage and additional damage caused by each blow, so they have accumulated injuries that cannot be underestimated. There is no doubt that this is an ultra-high-intensity battle. A little carelessness will put the young man, Feng Shi, into a desperate situation, and he can only use his last resort to save his life. However, it is precisely because of this that the huge pressure brought has become the motivation and opportunity that Feng Shi has been looking forward to. He himself can clearly feel that between life and death, the basic stick skills that he has reached the peak proficiency of master level are beginning to loosen, and he has the feeling of continuing to improve. His movements became more and more smooth, with a somewhat inexplicable charm. A vigorous and upward force seemed to break out from the depths of his consciousness. He's going to break through. In front of the crystal screen, one of Feng Shi's personal instructors, level 54 fighter Wei Wu, reminded him with bright eyes, and then sighed with a bit of amazement. He really succeeded. I never thought that one day I would see the charm of Dasheng level basic stick skills in a first level warrior. A master level stick technique in the hands of a first level warrior. What an outrageous word. How can these newbie fighters who call themselves geniuses survive? This kid, I'm really convinced. Listening to his sigh, other instructors could also feel the same, because they all knew about Feng Shi's training progress, and the Dasheng level stick technique was not all his highlights. This kid has already mastered Dasheng level swordsmanship and knife skills, and this is the third Dasheng level basic skill. The beginning has been so shocking. What height will he reach in the future? The second fighting god? In other words, will the realm of God be his limit? Just when everyone was sighing, the scene in the picture changed again. A little accident caused Feng Shi's battle situation to suddenly change, and the situation became dangerous again. No! The brat is going to suffer. Go and save him. Some people were shocked and were about to stand up, but Yin Liyue held down their shoulders. Why are you so anxious? The trial has just begun. It's still very early. Have you forgotten that he still has a trump card? After everyone heard this, they immediately relaxed again. That's right, this guy also has the temporary status skills that come with the battle god's battle body. Until that trump card is used, nothing will happen to Feng Shi. No monster in the entire trial land can threaten a warrior who has activated the fighting god's hegemony, not even a siege. At this time, Yin Liyue looked at the screen, seemed to have discovered something, and slowly reminded. Let's see, it's time to decide the winner. This guy seems to have come up with something new. After everyone heard this, they lowered their heads and looked. His eyes returned to the battlefield by the river. Feng Shi, who was fighting with more than a dozen large monsters, felt the changes in the basic stick skills, but could not see a complete breakthrough. His highly tense mentality was suddenly exposed because of this hint of impatience. One flaw. This slight change in his mentality distracted him slightly, so he slowed down his movements a step. He was suddenly hit by the snake's tail that sneaked up from behind, and he immediately flew out. This was a rare opportunity. Several other monsters immediately jumped up excitedly, trying to bite Feng Shi in half in the air. At the critical moment, Feng Shi threw out the nunchucks and oriental sticks in his hands, hitting the heads of the two jumping monsters, slightly changing their movement trajectories, but his body was still hit by one of the monsters. He fell hard into the river. Wow! The water splashed everywhere, and the monsters on the shore immediately rushed over, taking the opportunity to add insult to injury and kill Feng Shi. However, at this moment, Feng Shi suddenly stood up from the river and waved his hand vigorously. In an instant, it seemed as if there was a white dragon in his hand, sweeping towards the surroundings while throwing out a dense barrage of water droplets. These water droplets appear to be soft, but they contain tenacious energy. They actually turn water into bullets, with a whistling sound that breaks through the air, hitting these monsters with all their strength. Each drop also triggers a circle of faint light. Golden ripples, triggering additional true damage. This made them wail in pain and retreat again and again. At this time, Feng Shi, who was standing in the river, wiped his face and pushed back his scattered hair. At some point, he took out a long and large piece of white cloth with his right hand, which was larger than a bed sheet. He quickly flicked his wrist, and then used both hands to twist it into a thick white whip. No, looking at the way he holds it and the fighting stance, it's clearly not used as a whip, but more like a stick. Huh. However, he let out a long breath, and the zhenqi he had just gained in his body entered the cloth along the palm of his hand, adding a bit of hardness and toughness to it. There is an extra chi slot in his personal panel, and his basic stick skills have reached the level of mastery. Then, a new entry-level specialized skill slowly appeared at the end of the skill bar. Cloth Stick Specialization, Entry Level. Chapter 28, Job Change, An Overwhelming Victory. During this month's training camp for newcomers, Feng Shi actually discovered another surprise. The potential that his mutant weapon master talent can develop is not only the superimposed training speed of up to 30 times. In the process of practicing Chiman weapons, he also discovered another benefit that can be called cheating. That is, when practicing some weapons, his proficiency in several basic skills will be improved at the same time. For example, when he practiced nunchuck, the basic skills to gain proficiency were not only the 3 directly related basic stick skills, stick weapon specialization, and multi-jointed stick specialization, but also basic blunt weapons and basic soft weapons. 2 basic skills. It's just that the proficiency gained by the latter is at a discount compared to the 3 directly related skills. But this is also a big surprise. Practicing only one weapon can increase the proficiency of 5 basic skills. Combined with the improvement of training efficiency by 10 to 30 times, it is simply not too satisfying. And the improved basic skills can help the efficiency of training other types of weapons to some extent. Under such a continuous virtuous cycle, Feng Shi was able to upgrade such basic skills to mastery level in just 1 month, and even upgraded many of them to the peak of mastery level. Feng Shi also thought about the reason. It is easiest to infer through the results, so he quickly came up with the answer. The reason why there is such a linkage improvement effect must be because there is a certain vague definition of the positioning and use of the nunchaku. It is a stick weapon and a strange weapon in this world. At the same time, it can be regarded as a blunt weapon and has some characteristics of a soft weapon. Because of this vague definition, the benefits generated during practice are effective for all relevant basic skills. Some are fully effective, and some are partially effective. After discovering this, Feng Shi naturally began to think about which weapons have multiple types of judgments at the same time. There are many answers. Feng Shi thought of many of them himself, and he made all the weapons he thought of, and then practiced them all. Some of them were repeated with a certain weapon, and no separate specialization skills appeared after practice, while some were successful and allowed him to develop new basic skills. The cloth stick currently held in Feng Shi's hand is obviously a strange weapon with multiple definitions. It's both a stick and a whip, but I don't know if it can be considered a blunt weapon. Now Feng Shi really wants to thank his body for the memory he brought from his previous life. If he hadn't watched those martial arts movies since childhood, how would he have known so many unpopular weapons, and how could he have thought of a weapon like a cloth stick? Thanks to the wild imagination of martial arts film directors, today's battle should be regarded as a tribute to him and his childhood memories. Whoa! The white cloth was like a dragon, swung out and hit a monster on the head hard. The long stick of wet cloth wrapped with the power of zhenqi not only has the toughness of a stick weapon, but also has the explosive power of the whip end of the long whip. The combined destructive power hits the head of the monster with a dull bang. Then there was the sound of bones breaking, and a burst of true energy penetrated into the brain, bursting out inside, killing it directly on the spot, without even the actual damage being done. Penetrating the outer layer of defense and hitting the bull from across the mountain is one of the characteristics of chi value. After one blow, Feng Shi did not hesitate, swinging the cloth stick and hitting the other monster repeatedly. As the cloth stick rotated, it hit the monster's body repeatedly, dealing blunt damage, infuriating damage, and real damage. It was beaten to death in a short time. At this moment, 2 more monsters regained their composure and flew toward him from behind. Then Feng Shi seemed to have eyes on his back. The cloth stick he was swinging in his hand turned around and hit the water behind him hard, causing water to splash all over the sky. With the help of the power of this stick, the true energy flows from the stick into the water surface as if it were worthless, allowing some of the splashed water droplets to incorporate a little bit of true energy. These infuriating energy turned the water droplets into Feng Shi's alternative weapon, falling on the 2 monsters, causing countless splash damage, and triggering countless real damage at the same time. This effect is the same as the way Feng Shi forced the herd back just now, but this time most of the water drop barrage was endured by these 2 monsters. They were already seriously injured and were killed on the spot by an excessive amount of forced real wounds. They fell down in the river, separated a distance from Feng Shi's left and right sides, splashed a lot of water, and then fell into the river lifeless. Feng Shi didn't even look at them, and swung the cloth stick to kill the remaining monsters. While approaching, the cloth stick is rotated in the hand, a common action of turning the stick left and right with one hand, while spinning and hitting the water surface, continuously splashing forward with water splashes blessed by infuriating energy, like a moving sprinkler windmill. The monsters were frightened by these infuriating water droplets. They wanted to run away wherever they dared to get close. However, Feng Shi was moving very fast, and several of them were hit by the water droplets before they had time to escape, triggering a series of real injuries. Died on the spot. The last few remaining monsters finally ran back to the river bank, but were overtaken by Feng Shi, who leapt up from the river. He swept his stick in the air, throwing out a rain of water droplets, hitting them and beating them. He kept wailing and falling to the ground one after another. Feng Shi was not soft-hearted, and when he landed, he swung the cloth stick and smashed their heads one by one. A battle that had been stalemate for a long time ended quickly after Feng Shi broke through. An overwhelming victory, overwhelming and undisputed. It wasn't until the battle was over that Feng Shi took a deep breath and stepped forward. The cloth stick in his hand was slowly released, but he suddenly threw it out with force, and the white cloth flew straight towards the burning tree. Under Feng Shi's control, the end of the cloth was accurately wrapped around the hilt of the Feng Yen sword on the tree trunk. Feng Shi immediately pulled the cloth and the magic sword was pulled out and flew back in Feng Shi's direction. Feng Shi's right hand had already taken out the scabbard of the Feng Yen sword in advance, and he raised it forward casually and handed it out. The flying demon sword was accurately inserted into the scabbard, and the sword was sheathed, hiding its edge. Then he once again dropped the corpses of monsters on the ground. He just picked up the nunchucks and oriental sticks he had thrown before and put them away. He then went to the river to fill up some river water, and then crossed the river without looking back, quickly getting away. Go! He had just finished a fierce battle, but he didn't even want to take a break. He didn't even take the time to dry his soaked body and clothes, and immediately continued on his journey. Outside the trial area, Feng Shi's instructors watched the whole battle. After a long silence, someone sighed. Twist cloth into a stick and use water as a dart. How on earth did this kid come up with these tricks? He has taken full advantage of his abilities and the terrain. This brat was born to be a warrior. The fight was pretty cool, and he showed it off in the end. It's really beautiful, but I don't care about that. I just want to know who can go inside. What? Go put out the fire. What if the entire dense forest is burned down? This brat just left after beating him without even putting out the fire. Does he have any sense of justice? It doesn't matter, the air by the river is humid, and the plants in the secret realm are not so easy to ignite. The reason why this tree burned is mainly because of the flame magic in the magic sword. Now that the sword has been taken away, the fire will not spread. This youngster Feng Shi should also know something about it. Lord Nangong comforted him, but then the expression on his face quickly turned into a sneer. But this brat actually used the precious magic sword I gave him as a torch for lighting. I must have a heart-to-heart talk with him when he comes out. When the others heard this, they wanted to laugh but didn't dare, so they could only hold it in. But Yin Liue suddenly asked seriously. The demon sword is not the demon sword. Didn't you see that he actually did it on purpose? As soon as this statement came out, everyone was stunned again. Chapter 29, Professional Change, challenged the swarm. Perfect marksmanship. This brat, leaving his good magic sword unused, insisted on choosing 2 short stick weapons to deal with a group of large, thick-skinned monsters. He clearly deliberately lowered his combat advantage in order to increase the difficulty of the battle. Otherwise he can definitely use a more powerful long stick, right? Yin Liue said, then looked at Nangong Yen and asked, among the weapons you prepared for him, there should be a long stick, right? Only then did Nangong City Lord understand Feng Shi's thoughts and purpose, and the little resentment in his heart naturally dissipated. That's it, this brat. At this time, Yin Liue vowed to everyone again in a tone that understood everything. Just watch, he will definitely do more similar operations next. In fact, Yin Liue is indeed the person who understands Feng Shi best. Her guess was absolutely correct. Feng Shi continued on his way, eating some food and medicine he had brought in advance on the way, and restored his condition. While on the road, he was looking for the next training place that could bring him threats and pressure. Soon he made a discovery. He passed through the dense forest and came to a meadow full of luminous plants and blue flowers. The scenery is very beautiful, like a sea of flowers under the moon, as beautiful as a dream. However, as soon as he arrived here, he heard a dense buzzing sound. When I looked up, I saw a big tree growing alone in the center of the grassland. The branches above the crown of the tree were completely filled and wrapped with a honeycomb-like substance. It looked as if the entire tree was covered with tumors. It was very disgusting. The dense holes on it were enough to cause cardiac arrest in patients with trypophobia. There are many flying insects the size of ping-pong balls surrounding the big tree. If you look closely, you will see a very ferocious-looking blue-purple wasp. Some of the individuals are several times larger, as large as an adult's fist. Feng Shi recognized their identities at a glance, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Blood-festering demon bee. This is the most terrifying group of monsters in the entire trial land, bar none. Although they are only low-level monsters of levels 2 to 5, they operate in groups. If you provoke one, the entire swarm will be pursued and killed without end. Moreover, they are highly poisonous and will enter a state of poisoning if stung. If you are chased and stung by a swarm of poisonous bees, you will still be stung and poisoned to death no matter how much antidote you take. The average trialist would not take the initiative to provoke such a monster, and would immediately avoid it if they saw it. But Feng Shi was walking towards the hive tree with great interest at this time, with a strange smile on his face. This scene fell in the eyes of the instructors who were observing him remotely, and they couldn't hold it in any longer. Wait a minute. What does this kid want to do? He won't use these swarms to practice skills, right? What a mess. He is looking for death. This crazy boy. He's so crazy. He will kill himself sooner or later. Did you go in and stop him? At this time, the city lord suddenly said, "Don't panic. The wind flame demon sword I gave him is the nemesis of the bee swarm. As long as he uses the skills that come with the demon sword, it will not be a problem to deal with these low-level demon bees. And I also gave him the Kong Ming bracelet, after actively activating the shield, can also guarantee his life. There will be no... Damn it! He's here again." He suddenly cursed in the middle of the sentence, looking at the scene on the screen with his eyes wide open, and his face changed drastically. When everyone saw it, they were also frightened. Because Feng Shi repeated his old trick, he threw the wind flame demon sword out, inserted it into the trunk of the honeycomb tree, and used the flame magic power on the sword to ignite the tree. The flame ignited from the middle, and the high temperature and thick smoke immediately caused the magic bees in the hive above the tree crown to come out, and they gathered into a black cloud in the mid-air above the tree crown. Then the angry swarm locked on Feng Shi's position and roared towards Feng Shi. For a moment it was like a black cloud looming over the area, which was quite terrifying. Facing such a terrifying offensive, Feng Shi just touched his wrist, and a translucent shield automatically appeared on his body, covering his whole body. At the same time, he also took out a weapon. Seeing this, Nangong City Lord's face finally looked better, and he breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Fortunately, I'm not crazy enough to push myself into a corner, and I still know how to activate the shield." However, the spearmanship instructor Li Jinzong frowned after seeing the weapon in his hand clearly. "Is this a gun? Why is it so long? Wait a minute, he uses a spear to deal with the swarm? Isn't this a joke?" Others were also stunned, their expressions gradually became weird. "He's not kidding. It seems like he really wants to use this gun to kill these poisonous bees one by one." That's right, Fengshi really had this idea and did so. "But I saw him wearing the space shield that came with his storage bracelet, and under the siege of the swarm, holding a large gun with a barrel that was more than 2 meters long and a blade that was 60 centimeters long, spinning rapidly. Then he thrust out again and again, concentrating on trying to sting the poisonous bees flying around him. This gun is too long, like a broad-bladed sword mounted on a thick-barred gun. The total length is close to 3 meters. In other words, it should be called Majiao. This is a heavy cavalry weapon used in horse battles in ancient China. It is similar to a long spear. The blade is much longer than ordinary guns and spears. It can be used by cavalry to charge with a spear, and can also be used to sweep across with the spear. In China, this kind of weapon has left a great reputation in history, and it cannot be regarded as an unpopular weapon. However, in the sky world, this kind of weapon has not appeared on a large scale, so it is naturally regarded as a strange weapon. In the hands of Fengshi as a result, you can enjoy multiple proficiency efficiency bonuses. In Fengshi's skill column, there is a Ma Shu specialization, and it has almost reached the proficiency level. However, in this kind of battlefield, it is obviously extremely inappropriate to use a weapon with a wide range of opening and closing. Taking it out at this time will indeed increase the difficulty of the battle again. This is what Fengshi did deliberately. At this time, he had set a goal for himself. Before the shield value is depleted, break through the basic marksmanship training to perfection, otherwise, even if you are not stung to death by the swarm, you will be stung to death. The psychological pressure brought by this challenge was greater than fighting a dozen large monsters with a short stick. But the effect is obviously better. In a state of extreme concentration, Fengshi's success rate of cutting, picking, and stinging the magic bees with the sharp edge increases at a speed visible to the naked eye. Soon, even though they were small and flying around, Fengshi could hit accurately every time he fired his gun, with a stable success rate of 100%. Then, he fired the gun faster and faster, leaving straight after images in front of him. Sometimes when a spear is thrust out, the wind of the spear can even kill a series of demon bees in one breath. But no matter how fast he shoots, the demon bees he stings to death are just a drop in the bucket compared to the huge swarm. Soon, the energy shield on the body began to flicker and teetered under the crazy siege of the swarm. Finally, amid the tense remote viewing of the instructors, the shield shattered. The swarm of bees swarmed up and was about to drown Fengshi. However, at this moment, a dazzling gun light suddenly erupted. Countless gun shadows flashed away, and the bee swarm around Fengshi was cleared out on the spot, revealing his figure again. But I saw that he had a fierce aura that was invincible on the battlefield, and the big gun in his hand was also covered with a layer of cold cyan energy. He opened his arms casually, gathered strength slightly, raised a arrogant evil smile at the corner of his mouth, and said with a casual smile, "Sorry, you are no longer useful. Basic marksmanship, Deshang. Extra energy slot, fighting spirit value, open." As soon as he finished speaking, a shot swept across, causing the body to rotate, and then the whole person turned into a storm that kept dancing wildly. The cold green gun light envelopes the gun wind that sweeps across the wilderness, instantly creating a hurricane of death and destruction. The evil spirit is rising in the wind, dancing in all directions. Ding! You created your own active combat skill, please give it a name. Hearing the panel prompt ringing in his ears, Fengshi grinned, lifted Ma Shan on his shoulder, thought for a moment, then raised his head and replied proudly. If it moves like a soaring wind that calms the surrounding areas, or if it moves like a natural disaster that rolls around the world, then call it Big Boiled Dry Column. Chapter 30, Job Change, The Hidden Advantages of Extra Energy Slots. The fighting energy leaves the body. This is an effect that can only be achieved by active combat skills. This kid has created his own combat skills. An unbelievable exclamation interrupted the silence of the instructors in front of the screen. Religious officer Li Jin stared at the tall figure on the screen with a fanatical look on his face, turning his long spear, riding the storm, and sweeping away the wasteland. He could no longer maintain the shock in his heart and murmured. First level, newcomer, master of marksmanship, self-created combat skills, can these words be combined together? The other instructors were also looking at the pictures on the screen with their expressions in a daze. Even the calmest In Liue, even if he knew that Feng Shi had a growth skill that could improve his understanding and help him create his own combat skills, he also knew that teaching him air blade slash had given him the key to shaping energy out of the body in advance. The trick, but she still couldn't believe this amazing scene. This monster, is there anything else he can't do? Call. The sharp wind swept through and strangled the last batch of demon bees. Feng Shi stood sideways, leaving broken insect corpses all over the ground, spreading a thick layer on the grass. Tens of thousands of insect monsters were actually killed by him in this way. It was easier than destroying a swarm of wasps in the real world. But this is actually normal. The wind stirred up by Feng Shi not only contains outward fighting spirit, but it is also naturally regarded as a means of attack. If it is an attack means, it will definitely be added with the extra real damage of the Weapon Master and Luo Tianyanwu. A high percentage damage increase. Therefore, even if they are only slightly blown by the gun wind, the damage caused is beyond what their fragile bodies can withstand. The scope of the storm is so large, and Feng Shi can still rotate and move at the same time, just like a tornado destroying a parking lot or a vacuum cleaner sweeping through an ant nest. Is there any reason to be unhappy? Feng Shi, who once again completed a small goal, was in a good mood. He ignored the insect corpses on the ground, walked to the burning tree, picked up the wind-flame demonic sword on the trunk with one shot, and held it again. In hand. Then he raised the knife with his hand and cut down the whole tree with 3 strokes, destroying the hive, and happily took out the hive and honey inside. Although they look like wasps, they can indeed produce honey, and they are also precious and rare extraordinary ingredients. They can also be used to refine potions, making them a rare treasure. This kind of treasure is so precious that it even deserves Feng Shi to spend a little more effort to collect it. After collecting the honey, Feng Shizai continued to move forward without looking back, looking for the next training battlefield worth fighting. Lord City Lord, why don't you respond? Now he is using your once famous weapon as a hatchet. Do you have any objection? In front of the screen, In Liue, who had recovered from the shock, wanted to lighten the atmosphere, so she joked to Nangong Yen. She was the only one at the scene who dared to tease a legendary city lord in this tone. However, after hearing this, Lord Nangong City said calmly. The magic sword has been given to him. How he uses it is his own business. Besides, I now feel that it is an honor for Feng Yen to be used by a monster like Feng Shi. Maybe one day in the future, the man who built it and every blacksmith should be proud of this. As soon as these words came out, everyone was surprised. Does the city lord think so highly of him? This is a legendary strong man, how could he praise a newcomer in such a tone? He has already somewhat disregarded the majesty of the saint. As if he could see their thoughts from their astonished eyes, Nangongjian suddenly asked them calmly. Can't you understand? Then let me ask you, how much energy does Feng Shi have in him now? They didn't know why, but they could still count. Some people listed the numbers. The warrior's anger value is turned on, the sword energy value and sword energy value are turned on before the trial, and the true energy value and fighting spirit value are turned on during the trial. There are a total of 5 energy slots. What's the point? Strange. As he spoke, he himself was stunned. Apparently he finally realized something, and his eyes gradually widened. He already had 5 energy slots before level 30. Doesn't that mean that when he understands the power of elements, he can? After being reminded of this, other people finally changed their expressions and realized the horror. Have you finally figured it out? When you awaken the power of elements, the energy slot will merge with the elements to cause a qualitative change. Each energy slot opened before level 30 means that you can awaken an additional one when you break through this level. The power of elements. A person has the power of 5 elements at the same time. What is this concept? What's more, the power of these 5 elements can evolve and sublimate into 5 high-level conceptual elements when you reach level 70. What does this mean? You may not even think about it. What he said was not a disparagement, but a fact. The instructors around level 50 did not yet understand how powerful the power of the upper elements at level 70 was. The only person on the scene who could understand these words was the quasi-legendary Yin Liyue. Seeing her shocked and thoughtful look, Nangong Yen explained to them in a different way. Let's put it another way. Do you know how many energy slots the spirit god Crown, known as the strongest spell caster in the human race, has? As he spoke, he raised 4 fingers and said seriously. 4 kinds. Magic power, spiritual power, mana power, telekinesis power. There are 4 kinds in total. Each one incorporates a superior conceptual element to achieve unprecedented achievements. Then she broke through at an extremely fast speed and entered the realm of gods with an invincible attitude. As soon as she broke through, she overwhelmed the glory of the god of magic and became the most powerful mage in the human race. The spirit god Crown has only opened 4 energy slots, but Feng Shi has now opened 5. He has broken the record of the spirit god Crown and completed a new transcendence. I said this, can you understand it? The instructors were all dumbfounded. Even they had never heard of such a secret. So, does Feng Shi's potential surpass that of a god-level expert? Instructor Lu Yin swallowed his saliva and asked in disbelief such a treasonous question. Nangong Yen shook his head. It's not that we can surpass it, but we are definitely equally matched. We are definitely the seeds that are expected to become gods. In the future, if I say who has the most hope of becoming the new god-level powerhouse of the human race, then I will be the first one. Thinking of Feng Shi. But... Lu Yin turned around and pointed at the picture on the screen, reminding everyone. But he's still going on. 5 energy slots aren't his limit, right? Of course, everyone understood that this was the scariest place. They turned their heads again and looked at Feng Shi, who was carrying a chained hammer on the screen and strutting towards the habitat of a group of bird monsters. Their eyes became more solemn. Now they only have the same idea. That is, I can't wait to see how far this monster's limit will reach. Chapter 31, Job Change. The fighting spirit value is activated. Bone Burial Ground. With the help of remote observation spells, the instructors kept a close eye on Feng Shi's performance, and then watched helplessly as he repeated his old tricks and made all kinds of astonishing moves. For example, now, he uses 2 big hammers to anger birds and challenges the most flexible bird monsters with the clumsiest weapons to practice his basic blunt weapon skills. From being overwhelmed and tired of dealing with it at the beginning, it quickly improved to a state where the 2 hammers danced vigorously and killed all the approaching bird monsters. It took an hour to successfully break through the basic blunt weapon master level and unlock an additional energy slot, fighting spirit value. What happened next was simple. The bird monsters that had lost their use value were quickly completely slaughtered by Feng Shi with full firepower. Then, without even looking at the bird carcasses on the ground, he continued to fly all the way to the depths of the trial place. This time we walked for 2 hours, and we also took a break on the way. Finally, he came to the deepest part of the trial land, a black land barren of grass and covered with bones. This is the Bone Burial Ground, one of the most dangerous areas in the newcomer trial. Because the level of the undead monsters inside is the highest level in the entire trial land, ranging from level 10 to 15, and there are many of them. If these undead monsters were not able to leave the burial ground, all the monsters in the entire trial land would have been swept away. Feng Shi chose this place because of its danger. With 2 butterfly knives swinging in his hand, Feng Shi slipped in without saying a word. As soon as he entered, he saw a burly skeleton soldier covered with bones, swinging slowly. Its image is completely different from the skeletal cannon fodder that I have seen in previous lives with only a skeleton left. The body of more than 2 meters high is also covered with a thick layer of skeletal armor. The thick bone stick in his hand looked like the thigh bone of some large creature, a well-deserved large blunt weapon. Looking at this majestic and terrifying appearance, no one can associate it with cannon fodder. When Feng Shi saw this, his eyes lit up, and he stood on tiptoes and touched from behind it. With his current strength, it is not difficult to deal with a skeleton warrior of about level 12, and it is not impossible to fight head-on. But killing monsters is not his goal, it is to force himself to break through the limits. So the goals he set for himself were: use the assassination method and the 2 small butterfly knives in your hands to kill the undead monsters that are least afraid of such small weapons with 1 blow. In order to further increase the difficulty, he also made up his mind that if he could not succeed in one attack, he would not be able to attack again, even if he was chased and beaten. Only use 1 strike each time, and retreat if you can't kill the target. Anyway, you can get rid of the pursuit as long as you exit the bone burial ground. However, it turns out that he was too simple. As soon as he got close, the skeleton monster sensed something, immediately turned to look at Feng Shi, and then rushed towards him with a big bone stick without saying a word. Depend on. Feng Shi turned around to avoid the blow, and the butterfly knife in his hand hit the skeleton soldier's neck while turning, intending to decapitate it. However, this knife only made a slight crack, which was far from cutting off the head. Feng Shi narrowed his eyes and thought to himself, the neck is too thick and the bone armor is too thick. It is difficult for a butterfly knife, which is not even as powerful as a dagger, to cut through this hard armor. Thinking of this, he didn't hesitate and kicked it on the chest, pushing it backwards. At the same time, he used the force to fly back, turned around and ran away. Because he was in the outer edge area, he ran out quickly. The skeleton soldiers behind him chased him for a while, but gave up when they saw him running out of the boundary line of the boneyard, turned around and started to wander slowly again. Feng Shi looked at the 2 butterfly knives in his hands, quickly swinging them in fancy movements, thinking secretly in his heart. After all, he is only level 1, and no matter how incredible the cheat is, his attributes are not as good as those of level 12 monsters. Weapons are deliberately chosen to be the most inappropriate, so it is normal to have this kind of result. It seems that if you want to kill with 1 hit, you have to find a more effective weakness. As for the sneak attack being discovered, it is actually quite normal. He is not an assassin. He does not have any hidden aura or invisibility professional skills. Undead monsters also have dark vision and life-sensing abilities. Ordinary assassin warriors may not be able to hide from their perception and approach with sneak attacks, let alone he is a first-level little warrior. It seems that we have to change our method of action. This method of assassination will not work. After sighing, he stood outside again and began to observe the terrain in the burial ground, and suddenly his eyes lit up. Although the environment of this bone burial ground is similar to a wasteland, there are many protruding rocks or stone pillars, and even the fossilized bones of some giant creatures. The size of these things is very impressive, some are even more than 10 meters high, which is enough for people to climb up, and then jump down, and a magic weapon descends from the sky. Assassin, assassination, jumping. These words quickly reminded him of a well-known game from his previous life that was very capable of creating memes. At the same time, I also suddenly thought of a new way of action. That's right. Isn't it already obvious that the assassination method does not require stealth? Compared to stealth and sneak attacks, this is the real assassination. After having an idea, Feng Shi no longer hesitated and entered the burial ground again, taking out a long soft whip in his hand. With its assistance, it will be more convenient to fly over the eaves and walk over the wall. Of course, you have to have skills. Fortunately, his basic soft weapons are also proficient level. A few minutes later, Feng Shi stood on top of a 10-meter-high fossilized skeleton, looked at the skeleton warriors passing slowly below, and took a deep breath. Then he didn't hesitate, opened his arms and jumped down. Your sense of life is indeed keen, but if I take a leap of faith, how should you respond? Feng Shi, who saw the right moment, landed directly in front of the skeleton soldier, rolled to relieve his strength, and the moment it reacted, he suddenly handed out 2 butterfly knives from below, stabbing the skeleton soldier's eye sockets fiercely, and directly smashed into the skull burning inside. Soul Fire. Ordinary physical attacks are naturally unable to harm the illusory soul fire. But don't forget that Feng Shi's attack comes with extra real damage, and it can cause damage as long as it hits. And this real damage is also increased by Luo Tian Yanwu's percentage damage increase effect. This resulted in this blow being a direct fatal blow to the soul. With the soul strength of this low-level undead, there was no possibility of resistance at all. The soul fire was extinguished on the spot and he died directly. Feng Shi looked at the fallen skeletal remains, turned the butterfly knife and closed it handsomely, and raised a smile at the corner of his mouth. What? It's not difficult to kill. It's much easier to deal with than the plague-changed skeletons we encountered before. Yes, after all, I just think that the artificial undead monsters created by guiding the demonic energy can't even leave this burial ground. There is indeed a gap with the real natural undead. The quality of the undead's magic power is too different, even if the level is higher, the strength that's it. After a short analysis, Feng Shi continued to act, looking for the next target. Even if he had to go deeper, he didn't feel there was any danger. However, 10 minutes later, Feng Shi ran away desperately, running towards the edge of the burial ground in embarrassment. Behind him, hundreds of various skeleton monsters chased after him, sending out billows of smoke. Damn it! I just stabbed you once, why did you need to run out so much? Grass. Chapter 32, Professional Change, Deshang Level Body Skills. The murderous aura value is activated. Although Feng Shi found the best assassination method, Feng Shi's efficiency was really not high. Every time you take a shot, you must observe the terrain and select the target. You must ensure that there is a building near the target location to jump to, and that you can jump to the target's side. Even if he finds the right time, he doesn't succeed every time. Sometimes the jump is off-center and the best opportunity to take action is missed. Sometimes the stabbing misses the mark and fails to penetrate the eye socket. The biggest surprise was that the target was running around, and another undead monster came running. Feng Shi didn't care if there were one or two monsters. He would jump down and kill one first. But the deeper you go, the fewer the undead monsters are alone. Most of the time, there are several or dozens of them together. So when they got to the back, Feng Shi didn't waste any time. Even if there were hordes of undead, Feng Shi would jump in without hesitation, stab one to death with his sights on the target, and then turn around and run away. Every time he takes a desperate risk, no matter whether he succeeds or not, he will be chased by a group of undead, and more undead are chasing him, and they will end up fleeing all the way outside. Repeatedly, the originally dead burial ground became quite lively, and soon you could see a young man running out being chased by a large group of undead. However, under this somewhat comical risk-taking, Feng Shi's proficiency in basic short weapons, dagger specialization and basic movement skills are all rapidly improving. Among them, the first one to break through was the basic movement technique, breaking through from the proficient level to the Deshang level. This was not in line with Feng Shi's initial expectations, but it was quite reasonable after thinking about it carefully. After all, after each successful assassination, he had to escape from a group of undead and was chased by more and more undead armies. It was obvious that his basic body skills had gained more death training. Fortunately, this is an unexpected surprise. Although the upgrade of basic movement skills cannot bring additional energy slots, it is an important part of one's own strength. Of course, the higher the level of the skills that must be used in battle, the better. After the basic movement skills break through to the Deshang level, Feng Shi's subsequent assassination training will become easier. Sometimes he doesn't even have to climb too high, he just sprints with all his strength, and then a heroic charge hits his face, followed by a fearless war cry to complete the instant control, taking the opportunity to pierce the soul fire with a knife, and finally rushes as fast as possible with his flexible body skills. He escaped safely from the group of undead that had just reacted. Listen, what an orthodox assassination method. As a result, the efficiency of the assassination has also been greatly improved. Feng Shi also gradually understood the true meaning of assassination through successful assassinations, which led to the breakthrough of the basic short weapon skill. Even the skill of dagger specialization has gradually been improved to close to the mastery level. Peak level. 2 days later, Feng Shi, who felt that she was just one step away, changed her behavior. He stood tall and straight on the top of a stone pillar, looking down at the dozens of undead monsters wandering below with an arrogant and indifferent expression, his eyes firm as if with some kind of belief. His idea at this time was that he was going to carry out a complete real assassination this time. Slowly putting the hood on the back of his head, Fengshi chanted softly with his masked mouth. All things are false, all things are permitted. The next moment, he jumped down and landed in the center of the undead group. The butterfly knives in both hands stabbed out one left and one right at the same time, accurately stabbing into the eyes of the two undead monsters standing together. Before the undead monsters around him could react, he had already made a mistake and charged towards the nearest undead. Roar! This undead monster subconsciously raised the bone knife in its hand to chop Fengshi, but as soon as it raised its arm, Fengshi suddenly accelerated and rushed in front of it. The arm exploded at extremely high speed, and the afterimage flickered and stabbed into it accurately. With his big mouth, he stabbed it into the head, extinguishing the fire of its soul. The movement of the undead stopped for an instant. Fengshi drew his sword casually and used its body to draw a semicircular arc. He avoided the attacks of several undead and once again got close to one of the hunched skeleton warriors and rolled over its back. At the same time, the butterfly knife in his left hand quickly turned into a backhand grip, stabbing it accurately into the crack of its skull. With the help of the tendency of the body to turn over, he used the dagger as a lever to directly open its broken skull and wipe out the fire of its soul. Without any stagnation, the moment Fengshi turned over, he thrust out his right hand and stabbed the other undead's eye socket with a knife. After he succeeded, he tilted his head and dodged a bone club that was sweeping towards him. He turned around and stabbed the dagger into the eye socket of the attacker. Then he jumped up on the spot, flew out, and crashed into a tall skeleton that had just raised the bone gun. In the arms of the soldier, he stepped on its chest with the soles of his feet, shrank into a ball, and stabbed its eyes with both knives. Then its legs exerted force again, using its body as a springboard to jump high back, avoiding a series of attacks from undead monsters, and continued to launch an undefeatable attack on the undead closest to it. While tossing and turning, Fengshi performed all kinds of incredible and unconstrained movements. In the most labor-saving and thrilling way, he accurately and elegantly avoided the clumsy attacks of the undead, and then caught the flaws in their actions. Every time hand out the short blade and kill easily. In this kind of artistic attack and defense dodge, he gradually entered a focused and mysterious state, his movements became more and more relaxed, his attacks became more and more casual, but his movements became more and more precise and efficient. I am the only one who can do whatever I want. Soon, he killed dozens of undead monsters until only the last few were left, but he himself did not suffer any damage. At this moment, Fengshi's figure suddenly stopped, and her elegant movements like rhythmic gymnastics suddenly stopped. A substantial murderous aura emerged from his body, sharp and cold. But the undead monsters were unaware of this and thought they had found an opportunity to counterattack, so they immediately swarmed forward. However, at this time Fengshi raised an arm, held the dagger flat on his chest, and slowly closed his eyes. The next moment, there seemed to be an ethereal and mysterious sound in the air, like the sound of a knife piercing the air, or like a ghost and crow groaning in silence. What followed was a bone-chilling dim sword light, which flashed straight across the battlefield, followed by scattered black light around it and disappeared, like the illusion of black feathers drifting, or like the afterimage of a will-o'-the-wisp flying butterfly. It disappears in a blink of an eye, like an illusion. The center of the sword light was dark and deep, but the edge was glowing with golden edge. Although it seemed dull, it also had an indescribable and stunning and gorgeous feeling. It took away all the brilliance in an instant, making the surrounding environment gray and colorless. For a moment, the sword light flashed past and dissipated in an instant. Fengshi's figure had appeared 10 meters behind these undead monsters. His fingers turned flexibly, and while he was turning the two butterfly knives back to their blades, the bodies of the undead monsters behind him also fell apart and fell into pieces, as if they had been cut countless times in an instant. Basic short weapon breakthrough, Deshang level. Extra energy tank murder value, open. You created your own active combat skill, please give it a name. Just call it, Yusha Kongming. Chapter 33, Job Change, End the Trial with the Most Invincible Attitude. After successfully opening the murderous aura value, Fengshi did not choose to leave the bone burial ground, but continued to practice here. There are many undead monsters here, and their levels are also high, which can continue to provide him with good pressure. To put it simply, their value has not yet been fully extracted. Besides, they had chased him so many times in the past 2 days, which made him so embarrassed at the beginning. It was too easy for them to just let them go. Although for various purposes, Fengshi didn't intend to let them go. So he then lived in the burial ground and continued his orthodox assassination behavior. But after that, he no longer stuck to using the butterfly knife, but used various weapons in turn, and no longer limited himself in how to kill them. He has already mastered short weapons, but he still has many other weapons that need to be practiced. While spawning monsters, he still didn't take off the black stone necklace around his neck that was used to suppress upgrades. Although after turning on the murderous aura value, he already had 7 energy slots in his body, which had reached his initial expectations. But he still wants to see if he can activate more. After all, he still has so many basic skills that have not yet reached the adult level. What if another surprise happens? Who would think that their energy bar is too long? Fengshi admitted that he was indeed a greedy man, but he felt that there was nothing wrong with him. He was not afraid of death, so why was he afraid of bursting his belly? With this thought in mind, Fengshi stayed in a shabby place like the burial ground for another 5 days. Others came here to take risks and upgrade, but he regarded this place as a treasured place for retreat and cultivation. While he was obsessed with training, within 7 days, other trialists came out of the trial place one after another and returned to the cave square outside. Most people came out alive, some were seriously injured, and more were slightly injured, but not many were intact. Of course, there were also a few unlucky ones who encountered accidents and lost their lives. This is inevitable. The trial place is not a copy of the game. The monsters in it are only weak, not false illusions. No one can guarantee absolute safety. As the principal said, there are a few unlucky ones every year, and the number of deaths this year is already relatively small. The level of the students who come out must have reached level 10, and a few outstanding ones are 1 or 2 levels above. At the same time, they also got some low-level extraordinary materials, and they can make a fortune after returning. This is also the harvest they deserve. There are not many things, but they are extraordinary materials. They are already very precious to newcomers, and they are the first pot of gold for them to start. The students in the square were gathered together, and most of them were talking about their achievements with familiar classmates, looking excited and joyful, mixed with longing and expectations for the future. The injured newcomers were also treated on the spot near the square. The bunker officials arranged specialized personnel and materials to quickly heal their injuries. During the discussion, as time went by, more and more students discovered that the most talented and dazzling genius student in their class had not yet appeared. This made them unable to help but discuss and make various speculations. Chief of the Material Warfare Class 1, how come the student Fengshi who has awakened his S-level talent hasn't come out yet? Yeah. It's already the 7th day, no matter what, it's time to come out, right? Isn't it said that the sooner someone reaches level 10, the higher the score will be? I thought he would be the first to come out. Are you running into some trouble? What? The one blessed by heaven? That's it? What do you know? Time is just a scoring item, and performance points are also very focused. I guess I can improve my points in it. Not necessarily, we all work as a team, but he is alone and still rushes to the front. Even if something goes wrong, it is normal. Who makes him so arrogant? After all, you are the one blessed by heaven, so nothing will happen to you, right? So what about the heavenly blessed one? Isn't he also a first-level newcomer? Is it possible that he can still sweep the trial ground? If he is so arrogant, it would be more reasonable for him to get into trouble. If an S-level genius really fell in the trial field, he would really become famous, and he would probably go down in history. It is easy for people to spread gossip when they are free, and soon there are many bad voices in the square, and they spread more and more vigorously. The instructors noticed something was wrong, and when they were thinking about whether to curb it, the situation suddenly reversed. Because a student suddenly exclaimed, attracting everyone's attention. Holy shit! What the hell is this? Come and see. Is this person Fengshi? Many students came over and discovered that an image of a human figure appeared on various magic screens in the square that were used to observe the activities of students inside the training ground. Because all the living newcomers had come out, Fengshi was the only one left in the trial area, so many surveillance spells that could observe him focused their vision on him. But at this time, Fengshi on the screen made everyone who saw it couldn't help being shocked. But on the screen, Fengshi's whole body was glowing with golden light, and there was an illusory battle suit made of solid golden light on his body. The originally handsome facial features seemed to become a bit more refined and cold at this time. His cold eyes exuded a blazing golden light, and a faint golden eyeshadow appeared around his eyes, adding a touch of divinity to his image. The originally handsome short broken hair has turned into long shawl hair, which is also covered in golden light. Even the color of many hair strands has been rendered golden, flying in the wind, looking cool and crazy. The most eye-catching thing is that he is standing on a shining golden sword, and the sword is actually holding his body and flying at low altitude. Beside him, dozens of various weapons followed closely, with different styles, shapes, and types, but without exception, these weapons were all covered with golden energy and dyed with golden light. The gleaming look is like a magic weapon flying out of myths and legends. Just like a heavenly war god coming to the world to slay demons, Fengshi stood on the giant sword with his hands behind his back. While flying at low altitude, the various golden weapons surrounding and following him activated their divine power from time to time. Or the hammer flew out and hit the ground. Or the sword rotates out of thin air, constantly throwing out golden arcs of sword energy to cut the ground. Or chains and whips circle and shoot out like flying dragons, traveling vertically and horizontally. Or use spears, sticks and other long-handled weapons to fly and shoot, with terrifying power. These weapons attack automatically, unleashing all kinds of attacks on all the monsters below, bringing them catastrophe. Wherever Fengshi passes, all monsters are wiped out. It will take seconds if you show your head, and it will take seconds if you don't show it. Seeing his invincible posture like a god descending into the world, the students who gathered in front of the screen to watch were stunned with shock, and a bit of confusion gradually appeared in their eyes. Are he and I really in the same class? You call this kind of monster a newcomer? The painting style of riding a horse is completely different, right? At this time, a student suddenly discovered something, pointed at the entrance of the trial place and shouted. He's out. Everyone immediately raised their heads and looked towards the entrance. Sure enough, a brilliant golden light lit up at the entrance of the cave, and the majestic figure standing with a sword flew out of the cave entrance and leisurely fell from the giant sword. The moment his feet hit the ground, the golden light and illusory battle clothes on his body dissipated into golden light particles all over the sky. The handsome and indifferent young man continued to move forward without stopping, and pieces of golden weapons flew out from behind. While the golden coat was also dissipated, milk swallows gathered towards the young man's figure like they were throwing themselves into the forest, and then quickly disappeared behind him. Beneath the raised palm. Under everyone's gaze, among the golden light particles scattered all over the sky, a godlike figure shuttled through the passage of another world. He raised his hand to put away the magic weapon, dispersed the radiance all over his body, and restrained his peerless edge. He descended into their world, walked toward them step by step, and returned to ordinary step by step. This scene is so magnificent and beautiful, with a bit of ancient mysterious solemnity and dreamy and sacred charm, which makes people's hearts sway and can't help but be shocked. Not far away, Fengshi's instructors recovered from their momentary absence, and their expressions became speechless. Just come out and create such a scene. This brat actually appeared in a Doshan tyrant body. It's just a trial for newbies, do you want to be so showy? Chapter 34, Reality, Fengshi's personal panel. After completing the trial, you will officially join the major legions and begin to participate in the endless defense battle between the human race and the abyss. However, before going to the battlefield, Fengshi still needs to go through legion selection. After joining the legion, he still needs some time to familiarize himself with legion affairs, train with his comrades, and continue to learn more advanced professional combat skills in the legion. Anyway, it's another series of trivial matters. Ignore these and return to the real world. As the main body, Feng Shi has been sharing the power of his clone Feng Shi, and his recent strength has also improved by leaps and bounds, which makes him very happy when he has not made much progress. One sunny morning, Feng Shi was sitting leisurely in a breakfast shop, ordering 2 drawers of steamed buns and tofu puffs, tasting them slowly, and with a thought in his mind, summoned a piece of data that only he could see. Curtain. Name, Feng Shi. Occupation, warrior. Level, LV15. Rage value, 13590/13590. Sword chi value, 12600/12600. Sword chi value, 13050/13050. Infuriating value, 12430/12430. Fighting spirit value, 11960/11960. Fighting value, 12570/12570. Murderous aura value, 10870/10870. Talent, alien clone, weapon master, mutation. Skill column. Basic fighting, mastery, basic meditation, beginner, wilderness survival, mastery, trap cracking, beginner, basic body skills, Desheng, basic stick skills, Desheng, basic sword skills, Desheng, basic sword skills, Desheng, basic blunt weapons, Desheng, basic marksmanship, Desheng, basic short weapons, Desheng. Basic bows and arrows, proficient, basic shield guards, proficient, basic hidden weapons, proficient, basic soft weapons, proficient, hammers weapon specialization, proficient, club weapon specialization, proficient, one-handed sword specialization, proficient, short sword specialization, proficient, greatsword specialization, proficient. Long knife specialization, proficient, short sword specialization, proficient, specialization, proficient, scimitar specialization, proficient, dagger specialization, proficient, shield specialization, proficient, gun weapon specialization, proficient, axe weapon specialization, proficient, spear weapon specialization finesse, mastery. Whip weapon specialization, proficient, soft sword specialization, proficient, forked weapon specialization, proficient, hook scythe specialization, proficient, chain weapon specialization, proficient, finger tiger specialization, mastery, claw specialization, mastery, multi-checker specialization, mastery. Chakram specialization, mastery, mace specialization, mastery, hidden blade specialization, beginner, fan weapon specialization, beginner, hand axe specialization, beginner, cloth stick specialization, beginner, riding skills, beginner, vast sea breathing technique, mastery. Growth type magical skills, Lunhuan Heart Tower, Fighting God Battle Body, Luo Tian Yenwu. Active combat skills, Fearless War Cry, mastery, Burst of Rage, mastery, Fury Strike, mastery, Heroic Crash, mastery, Air Blade Slash, beginner. Self-created combat skills, Dakshuan Ganyuan, Yushikongman. Storage space, 25 spaces. This is Feng Shi's own personal panel. After the clone Feng Shi activated his talent, he, as the main body, also activated his personal panel simultaneously. In terms of occupation, skills and level, they are basically the same as the clone Feng Shi, except for the subtle differences, such as the name, and in the talent column, his own original talent, the alien clone, is also listed. There is reason to believe that after joining Feng Shi, you can create more clones from other worlds and gain extraordinary powers from other worlds, and the related abilities will also be reflected on this panel. This is convenient for Feng Shi. He thinks this is good. When he has more abilities in the future, it will be easier to summarize and check. Looking at her own panel, Feng Shi became more and more satisfied. She couldn't help but nodded, feeling very relieved. Not bad. Not bad. My strength has become a lot stronger. My efforts are not in vain. What? You said it was the clone who worked hard, what does it have to do with me? Bold. Where would the clone come from without me? Don't say anything that is not conducive to unity. In fact, Feng Shi did feel that she was working very hard. In the past month or so, he not only had to improve his studies, but also found time to go home and practice various cold weapon techniques. He felt that Feng Shi had at least half, 40% of the many weapon-specific skills he had. 30%, 20%. I should still be able to reap the rewards of 2 successes. After closing the personal panel with satisfaction, Feng Shi ate breakfast while thinking about the next action. Now that the college entrance examination in the real world has ended yesterday, his own strength has also improved to a good level, he has time and confidence, and his mind can't help but start to become active. Before the end of this vacation, he felt that he should take the initiative and save enough extraordinary source of energy, so that he could quickly become stronger even if he was lying down in the rest of his college life. Apart from anything else, during this nearly 3-month vacation, at least a new alien clone must be made, right? Otherwise, what's the difference between him and Xianyu? Unfortunately, although he is very ambitious, he still has no specific goal and doesn't know where to go first. In the past few days, he had of course used the official channels of his best friend Xiao Fan to get information, but the results were not very good. There does not seem to be any region in the country where extraordinary events are particularly frequent. They are similar everywhere, and the imaginary monster-spawning treasure land does not seem to exist. Maybe I take it too much for granted. Feng Shi, who sighed secretly, picked up another steamed bun and put it into his mouth. Feeling the wonderful taste of the hot, sweet gravy exploding in his mouth, he felt a little better. At this moment, his eyes suddenly fell on the TV screen hanging in the breakfast shop, and his eyes narrowed slightly. The 3-day college entrance examination has ended, and the tourist season is about to enter. The General Administration of Tourism of Longwa warmly reminds the general public to pay attention to heatstroke prevention and sun protection during holidays, plan travel routes reasonably, and ensure traffic safety. At the same time, the General Administration of Tourism represents all industries in Longwa. Staff, I wish your family a happy visit, and all major scenic spots are well prepared to welcome guests. Reporting news that mountain collapses have occurred recently in the Lianyan Mountain Scenic Area in Yuncheng, a famous summer resort. No casualties were caused, but the roads were damaged and there are safety hazards in travel. For the sake of tourists, Yuncheng officials have temporarily closed the scenic area and some of the main roads leading to Yuncheng. Please suspend your travel plans to Yuncheng in the near future. Seeing the contents of the news broadcast on TV, Feng Shi frowned slightly. Cloud City? Isn't that the city where Sister Yun works? Sister Yun's full name is Lu Yun. She is the eldest daughter of Lu Mingyi, the director of the orphanage where Feng Shi grew up. She is more than 10 years older than Feng Shi. When she was a child, she often helped the director take care of the children in the orphanage. She is considered gentle and lovely by everyone. Big sister. As the king of children in the courtyard, Feng Shi has received a lot of care and help from her, and she treats her as a relative like the dean. The relationship between the two has always been good, although Sister Yun likes to call him Xiao Cici every time she sees him, which makes him a little embarrassed. Feng Shi often listened to the dean talk about her daughters, and naturally knew that Lu Yun joined the administrative unit after going to work. With the dean's connections and her own abilities, she developed well in the official unit of Longwa, not to mention her rapid rise. But he has been promoted continuously and has a bright future. It seems that she has been transferred to Yuncheng in the past 2 years. The unit is not far from the Lianyan Mountain Scenic Area. She can often be seen posting photos of herself hiking and exercising in the scenic area in her circle of friends. Feng Shi therefore had some knowledge of the Lianyan Mountain Scenic Area and knew that it was indeed a well-known summer tourist destination in the country. It has good mountains and rivers and beautiful scenery. It is a large place that has been developed for many years and has complete tourist facilities. It will be very cool to go on vacation there in the summer. But this morning's news made Feng Shi smell something unusual. Seeing that summer vacation has arrived, it is the peak tourist season. How could a scenic spot like Lianyan Mountain, which is famous throughout the country for its summer resort, be closed down so easily? And they directly told everyone in the news not to go, and they didn't even make it clear how long the closure would last. This has to make people think a lot. Feng Shi had reason to suspect that some large-scale extraordinary incident was about to happen or had already happened in Yuncheng, and that even the local officials would be unable to solve it in a short time, so they used this method to persuade the people to retreat. When he thought of this, his eyes flickered, and he had a vague decision. Chapter 35, Reality, Xiao Fan's Plan. Madman, I knew you must be here. Just as Feng Shi was watching the news and thinking to himself, a familiar voice came from the door of the breakfast shop, interrupting his thoughts. Feng Shi came back to her senses and turned around to look, only to see Xiao Fan walking towards him with a smile, followed by Xiao Ninger, who looked well behaved. Feng Shi often comes to this breakfast restaurant, and it is not far from Zhao's house. They can guess that this is normal. Seeing them, Feng Shi put away her thoughts and stretched out her hand to say hello. Are you coming here to have breakfast too? Xiao Fan ordered a few breakfast items, took his sister to the opposite side of Feng Shi, and explained casually. I'll take Ninger to school and stop by for some breakfast. Feng Shi glanced at the shy Xiao Ninger with a smile, and thought to herself, is it really just a drop-in? Noticing Feng Shi's gaze, Xiao Ninger smiled sweetly and said hello, Brother Feng, good morning. Feng Shi smiled faintly and replied, hello, how many days does Xiao Ninger have to have vacation? She has her final exam soon, right? Xiao Ninger nodded obediently, well, it will be at the end of this month. That's really fast, come on. Well, I will, thank you Brother Feng. Xiao Fan on the side took a hard bite of the meat bun and joked with some taste. Needless to say, she will work hard. After all, if you don't get good grades in the exam, you shouldn't travel during the summer vacation. Xiao Ninger blushed and secretly stepped on her brother. Feng Shi didn't pay attention, but just followed his words and asked, oh? Are you going to travel during the holidays? Where are you going to play? Xiao Fan immediately made an excuse with a matter-of-fact expression. Of course you're coming with us. Do you still have to ask? When Feng Shi heard this, she immediately frowned at him and asked with her eyes, what are you doing? It's not that we can't go out together. He had made an appointment with Xiao Fan before to travel together during the summer vacation. But that was a monster hunting trip under the pretext of tourism. The purpose was to actively search for extraordinary creatures and hunt them to improve their strength. In this case, it would be inappropriate to bring Xiao Ninger along. Not only would it be inconvenient to move, but there might also be unknown risks. Xiao Fan just pretended that he didn't see Feng Shi's eyes and asked. What? As a brother, I am taking my sister on a trip. Is there any problem? Do you think my parents would agree if I go on a trip during the summer vacation without taking Ninger with me? How can I disagree with this? Feng Shi cursed secretly in her heart, but she couldn't say it directly on the surface. After all, she had to take care of Xiao Ninger's feelings. That's right. This is indeed normal. Have you told your parents? Are they reassured? Xiao Fan grinned, as I said a long time ago, they won't object once they hear that you are going together. They are very relieved about you. Damn it. Are you serious? Feng Shi was helpless and noticed that Xiao Ninger was looking at her nervously with an expectant expression on her face. She could only put on a smile and said gently. It's okay, Xiao Ninger, do your best for the final exam. After the exam, let's find some time to discuss the travel strategy. The little girl suddenly smiled, nodded her head obediently and said, yes. I will definitely do my best. Xiao Fan grinned as he watched from the side, and Feng Shi gave him a secret look, eat quickly, you moron, Xiao Ninger will be late for school later. After having breakfast together, Feng Shi and Xiao Fan sent Xiao Ninger to school together. After she trotted into the school gate, the smile on Feng Shi's face disappeared instantly. She turned around and hooked Xiao Fan's neck and pulled him to the side of the dark alley. Crazy brother, be gentle. Be gentle. If you have something to say, please say it. Don't do anything. What the hell are you thinking about? I don't believe you would make fun of Xiao Ninger's safety. Tell me, what are you planning? Hee hee. I really can't hide it from you. Xiao Fan smiled coquettishly, and then said seriously, of course I have my own plan. You heard that I'm crazy. We are going to college in the second half of the year, but to be honest, I don't worry about Ninger going to school locally alone. Feng-shi said nothing and continued to listen to what he said. Xiao Fan said in a deep voice, "You also know that there are many dangerous extraordinary creatures in this world. Even if the chance of ordinary people encountering them is relatively small, it is not impossible. Besides, Ning'er is so weak and does not have us as brothers to protect her. I'm afraid she will be bullied." "So what?" "So, I have always had an idea, that is to help her become a transcendent." Feng-shi completely understood what he was thinking and had even guessed it a long time ago. If it were him, and he knew that disaster would strike in the future, he would be eager to help his family become extraordinary and have the power to deal with the future. He just wanted to understand something, narrowed his eyes and asked, "Have you found the channel?" Xiao Fan said with some excitement, "That's right. I just got the news from the official. A medium-sized and large-scale abyss secret realm has appeared in the mountains of the Lianyan Mountain Scenic Area in Yuncheng. Although it has not been fully opened, many monsters have already emerged from the secret realm." He ran out and wandered around the mountains near the scenic spot. Because they were discovered late and could not be controlled in time, it will take a lot of manpower to clean up these monsters. At the same time, the secret realm is about to open, and more manpower will be needed by then. Now the official manpower is in short supply, and they are convening all personnel. Not only are they mobilizing official extraordinary people from other cities, but they are also issuing bounty tasks so that individuals in the society can also participate, and the rewards are very high. Feng-shi heard this and said thoughtfully, "Is there a quota for ordinary people to awaken the day after tomorrow in the reward?" "No." Xiao Fan shook his head and said, "But I heard that among the experts invited by the official to deal with the secret realm this time, there are 2 emperor-type apocalypse. One is official, and the other is also the leader of a folk extraordinary organization that has long-term cooperation with the official." Feng-shi finally suddenly said, "Do you want to take this opportunity to contact them and seek a quota for Xiao Ning'er to be awakened the day after tomorrow?" Xiao Fan nodded and said, "That's right. I am an official after all. As long as I can have a brilliant performance, I still have a good chance." Feng-shi felt that he was taking it for granted and reminded, "There must be many people who think the same as you, and the competition will be huge." Xiao Fan smiled confidently and said proudly, "Of course I know this, but after more than a month of special training, I am no longer what I used to be. After all, I am also a space system apocalypse, and I am confident that I can stand out in this operation. Besides, isn't it about you? I believe you will also help me, right?" Feng-shi laughed angrily and scolded, "Are you counting me in? You're quite rude." Xiao Fan smiled evilly, "Why should I be polite to you? It's pretentious." Okay. Then how do you want me to help you?" "You come with me. Just go through the bounty mission channel. When the time comes, I will be responsible for conquering the official emperor-type apocalypse, and you will be responsible for contacting the civilian one. We will work together on both sides. If we can get a quota for the day after tomorrow, it will be considered a success. As long as we can help Ning'er awaken to become a transcendent before her summer vacation, can't we travel together during the holidays? If the plan fails, I can just go back and persuade her to give up." Having said this, he paused and reminded, "But you must first go to the official website to register as a transcendent. At least you must become a state-registered transcendent to be eligible to receive bounties. Anyway, you were planning to register. Now that you're on holiday, you just have time." Feng-shi smiled again, "You are quite thoughtful." Chapter 36, Reality, Transcendent Identity Registration. Feng-shi did not refuse Xiao Fan's request, nor did she want to refuse at all. Registering the status of a transcendent person was within his plan, and he was planning to do it in the past 2 days. After all, the country allows individual people to exist, so there is no need for him to hide it and cause official suspicion and misunderstanding in various future actions. As for Yuncheng, he originally planned to visit, firstly to ensure Sister Yun's safety, and secondly to obtain the extraordinary source of essence. There will definitely be many monsters in the medium to large abyss secret realm, and just for this reason, he must make this trip. Now that Feng-shi had been persuaded, Xiao Fan immediately took him to the Longshan Villa area and registered at the Apocalypse Management Bureau where he worked. Although he had been here several times, this was the first time he walked in openly, and it was also the first time he saw the internal environment, so he observed it for a while after entering the park. The environment in the villa area is beautiful, clean and elegant. From time to time, you can see various garden facilities, green plants and flowers, and there are also small bridges, flowing water, ponds and pavilions. The style combines Chinese gardens and modern villas, but it does not appear obtrusive. It is said to be unique. And because it is surrounded by mountains and away from the city, the air is also very sober. Overall, it's a really nice place to live. But he didn't know if it was because of the daytime. He felt that he saw a lot of pedestrians on the road today, and it was much more lively than when he sneaked here a few times before. Logically speaking, there are very few residents in Longshan Villa area. In everyone's inherent impression, this place has always been deserted. After feeling something was wrong, Feng Shi secretly asked Xiao Fan beside her. "Don't you think there are a lot of people today?" Xiao Fan looked around carelessly and realized, "It's true what you said, there weren't so many people on the road before." He has been to the Longshan Villa area many times this month and has more say than Feng Shi. Now after being reminded, he quickly thought of something and guessed in a low voice. It should also be because of the matter about the Cloud City secret realm. Last night, our department jointly released the bounty mission with other official extraordinary organizations. Recently, there must be many independent people coming here to go through the process and want to participate. And many local official extraordinary beings also want to answer the call and go to Cloud City to support, so they have to apply here. It's not surprising to hear him say this. The real world is still in the early stages of the Abyss invasion, and the official invasion has not even started yet. There are not many extraordinary monsters, which are not enough for the leveling of extraordinary people in the real world. With more wolves and less meat, a sudden appearance of a secret realm that no ambitious extraordinary person would miss. Not to mention that the distance between Hangzhou and Cloud City is not very far. Those who are near the water and towers get the moon first. It would be abnormal for the extraordinary beings in Hangzhou not to take action. Facts also prove that Xiao Fan's guess was good. After entering the Tianqi Administration Bureau, they saw that many people had gathered in the hall. The originally cold hall now seemed to be bustling with people and quite lively. Feng Shi looked closely and found that each of these people had a reserved aura, but they were full of energy and energy. They were obviously not ordinary people. At this time, they were either chatting or waiting in long lines to go through the procedures at the counter. The topics discussed are not taboo, they are all related to extraordinary things. This made Feng Shi sigh. Although Hangzhou is a quasi-first-tier metropolis, it still surprises me that there are so many extraordinary people. However, Xiao Fan smiled and said, "Where is this?" "Our department's lobby is just one of the official places to go through the formalities. The several official extraordinary organization headquarters nearby can also go through the formalities, and they must be full of people." When Feng Shi heard this, she raised her eyebrows. So many processing windows? How many extraordinary people must there be in total? There are so many extraordinary people in one city, not counting the official extraordinary people. How many extraordinary people must there be in the whole country? It can grow to such a scale in just 1 or 2 decades. It seems that the top leaders of countries in the real world have been secretly promoting the orderly spread of extraordinary power, otherwise it would not be able to reach this level. But this is a good thing. The more extraordinary people there are, the better. Feng Shi hopes that the Dragon Kingdom will realize all its people are extraordinary before the Abyss invades. After squeezing into the lobby, Xiao Fan took Feng Shi into the elevator. It was finally much quieter after going upstairs. Soon he took Feng Shi to a large office and met his colleagues. Xiao Fan, why did you bring someone to work today? Is this your friend? As soon as they entered the door, they attracted the attention of many people in the office. A beautiful and sultry lady with glasses was the first to ask, looking a bit unseemly. Xiao Fan was a little embarrassed by her title, but he still explained. "Sister Xiao, this is my classmate's best friend. I just found out that he is also in Apocalypse, so I brought him here to register." When the beauty known as Sister Xiao heard this, her eyes suddenly lit up, she looked Feng Shi up and down, and said teasingly. Is there such a coincidence? Xiao Fan is so lucky. He is also a handsome boy. What is his name? Other colleagues also showed interest, and many people gathered around, feeling curious about this. It seems that the apocalypse is still relatively rare, otherwise they would not have such a reaction. Although Feng Shi didn't like being watched by others, they were Xiao Fan's colleagues, so he wanted to be polite, so he introduced himself. Hello everyone, I am Feng Shi, the wind of wind, flowers, snow and moon, and the dew of dawn. Sister Zhao joked in her voice, it turns out to be Xiaodi Feng. This surname is rare. Feng Shi smiled and replied, yes, I just picked a rare and nice surname myself. Changing the surname at will is the privilege of orphans. Everyone was stunned when they heard this, and then they realized that Feng Shi was an orphan, and the smiles on their faces couldn't help but shrink a bit, feeling a little embarrassed. Xiao Fan took the opportunity to introduce to Feng Shi some of his colleagues who had come over. They were all seniors who had been getting along with him more happily this month and who took better care of him. After Feng Shi got to know them one by one, she felt that they were quite friendly and had no ill intentions towards the newcomers. Afterwards, Sister Jia Xin named Zhao Man took Feng Shi to go through the registration procedures. While going through the process, she also took advantage of the situation and sent an invitation to Feng Shi to join the officialdom. Feng Shi didn't refuse directly, she just said that she would need some time to think about it. This statement is the most effective way to refuse. After hearing this, Zhao Man did not bother to persuade him anymore. Maybe he felt that because of Xiao Fan's relationship, Feng Shi would be more likely to join the official in the future, so there was no need to worry. There are a lot of procedures for the registration of the apocalypse, and the process is relatively long. It took half an hour to complete, and there were some minor problems during this period. When Feng Shi entered his fingerprints, a yellow warning interface popped up on the computer. Zhao Man was stunned for a moment, then frowned and looked at Feng Shi and asked. Brother Feng Shi, your fingerprints are in the archives of the Dragon Kingdom's official supernet and there are records of unsolved cases. Have you committed any crime before? As soon as these words came out, even Feng Shi herself was confused. What are you talking about? My hen? Xiao Fan beside him quickly asked, Sister Zhao, what's going on? Can you see the case information? Zhao Man clicked on it and looked at it, then showed a look of understanding and said. Oh. I know. Brother Feng Shi, have you been to the Longshan Villa area before? Have you ever killed monsters nearby without permission? Chapter 37, Reality, a little conflict. After hearing Zhao Man's inquiry, Feng Shi realized that it was the hidden danger left by her behavior of killing monsters when she secretly came here for the first time. However, he used the game coins to test the attack, and although he briefly cleaned up after killing the monster, he did not dare to stay because he was afraid that the monster's breath would attract the official transcendent, so he did not check carefully, leaving some game coins that were later arrived. The official extraordinary person at the scene picked it up and extracted his fingerprints from it. This was indeed an accident on his part, but what he couldn't understand was, didn't he just kill a monster? Why did he open a case for investigation? It wasn't murder. It was a bit too exaggerated to do this, right? He didn't think this matter was a big deal, which was why he didn't take it seriously after killing the monster. But from Zhao Man's words, he understood the taboo. It seems that my guess was correct, you have indeed been here. You are newcomers, so it's no wonder that you don't know. In fact, the entire Longshan Villa area, including the surrounding wilderness areas, does not allow unofficial extraordinary beings to hunt monsters without permission, because these are by default only available to our official staff. Welfare. This rule is not stated openly, but the entire extraordinary circle abides by it by default. If you come here to poach without permission, it will be regarded as a provocation to the official extraordinary group in the entire region. It wasn't a big deal at first, but in the past when people didn't pay attention, bold guys would always come to poach. Later, everyone shared the same hatred. Once they were caught, they would teach them a lesson to scare the monkeys. Saying that, Zhao Man said in a joking manner. Brother Feng, you were lucky last time and didn't get caught. Otherwise, you might have suffered a lot. But you are a newcomer. Since you don't know about this, the problem is not big. You just need to briefly explain the cause and details, and I can help you close the case. Feng Shi heard this and looked at Xiao Fan. After a moment of eye contact, Feng Shi confessed. Well, the reason why I came here that day was that I found Xiao Fan surrendering to the police station and then being brought here. I guessed at that time that there might be an official extraordinary agency department here, so I thought I would come over and observe secretly. I had just awakened at the time and didn't know anything. I just wanted to find out more information about extraordinary beings. However, I had bad luck when I came here that day. I was attacked by monsters at the foot of the mountain. Xiao Fan also started to act very cooperatively, with a shocked look on his face, and shouted. What? Did you find out that I was the apocalypse that day? Damn it! You actually kept it secret from me for so many days. I treat you as a brother, but you actually acted with me. Are you worthy of me? Feng Shi replied casually, who knows what's going on with you? Can't I observe such a big thing for 2 more days? You are too slow. What? You still? Zhao Man quickly stopped him with a smile. Okay. Don't quarrel. The apocalypse awakens suddenly, without a guide to lead the way. No matter how cautious you are, it is normal. If you, like Xiao Fan, go directly to the police station to expose yourself, it will be worse. It's a minority. I told you that this matter is not a big deal. Just explain it clearly. After the registration is completed, I will help you explain it to the superiors and cancel the case later. It won't be a problem. With that said, she continued to operate the computer, as if there was really no difficulty in doing so. However, just as she finished saying this, another voice sounded in the office. It doesn't matter. It's easy for you to say, your feelings are not your prey. When everyone heard the news, they saw a young man with fierce eyes standing up and walking toward them, staring at Feng Shi with a sneer on his lips. Zhao Man frowned when he saw the person coming, stood up and asked, Luo Can, what do you want to do? The young man known as Luo Can shrugged and said arrogantly. I don't want to do anything, I just want to follow the rules. With that said, he turned to Feng Shi and said, Boy, although you are a newcomer, you have also committed a taboo, and what you snatched was my prey that night, making my trip in vain and making me unable to even qualify. It didn't work out, so I'm very unhappy because this case was also filed by me. If you join the Apocalypse Management Bureau immediately and change the leader to me, then you are one of my own. I have no reason to trouble you anymore. But if you just register and don't join, then I have to exercise my reasonable rights. I'll teach you a lesson, please think about it. This was obviously a deliberate attempt to find trouble, and there might be some interests involved. Feng Shi immediately guessed that there might be a considerable additional reward for leading an apocalypse to join the officialdom. But no matter what the reason was, his attitude made Feng Shi very unhappy. The smile on his face disappeared instantly and his eyes became cold. However, before he could speak, Zhao Man had already reprimanded him again. Luo Can. Don't look for trouble here. Are you recruiting new people or are you deliberately making enemies of the department? Even if you want to join, the leader will definitely be Xiao Fan. What does it have to do with you? Are you ashamed of bullying a new person? Xiao Fan also stood up at this time and said. Luo Can, I know you have always disliked me. If you point your dissatisfaction at me, I will take care of it. Don't take advantage of my brother. Luo Can was also a shameless person. Hearing this, he said angrily. What are you two saying to your colleagues? This kid has harmed the interests of our official transcendent. Can you just dismiss him without knowing anything? No matter what, you have to teach him a lesson and let him remember it for a long time, right? Let me clarify the situation. Fighting between colleagues is strictly prohibited in the Bureau. If he doesn't join the Apocalypse Bureau, he will be an outsider. Why are you going to fight me for an outsider? Don't worry, I acted in a measured way. Even if he doesn't join, I will just give him a small lesson and won't let him get hurt. You don't have to worry about what I will do to him. You. Zhao Man was choked up for a moment by his appearance of a shabby scoundrel. He was about to continue to retort and scold, but Feng Shi's cold voice suddenly sounded. Who do you think you are, worthy of teaching me a lesson? As soon as these words came out, everyone in the office was stunned, and then their expressions changed, and they looked at Feng Shi with a bit more surprise and sympathy. This newcomer is a bit brave. He dared to provoke his seniors not long after he had just awakened. I'm afraid it's not going to end well. Luokan's strength is not something that a newcomer can compete with. This boy will suffer a lot. With Luokan's character, he won't let him go easily. Sure enough, when Luokan heard Feng Shi's unceremonious taunt, his eyes suddenly narrowed, he stared at him, and sneered. What did you say? Tell me again. Feng Shi replied impatiently, if you don't say good things twice, you can cure your deafness yourself. There is so much nonsense, do you want to fight? Crazy. You. Xiao Fan was anxious and immediately wanted to stop him, but Feng Shi reached out and held his shoulder, forcing him to interrupt. Xiao Fan saw his firm eyes and knew that his brother had already made a decision when he showed such an expression. There was absolutely no need for discussion. In the end, he could only stop admonishing and turned around to stand firmly by his side. Luokan laughed angrily and said loudly to the colleagues around him, okay. Everyone heard it, right? He was the one who wanted to be beaten. As a senior, I must help him, right? Feng Shi urged rudely, it's so noisy. What a waste of time. Can we do something here? When Luokan heard this, he thought that he had never seen anyone so anxious to seek death, but he said disdainfully. You want to fight here? That's fine. I don't have to teach you a lesson. Base. A clear sword cry brought with it a bright blue sword light, instantly interrupting his shouting. The flash of arc sword light flew past his scalp, cutting a deep and slender sword mark on the wall behind. Feng Shi held a steel ruler in her hand, looked at his widened eyes coldly, and warned with murderous intent. Say one more nonsense and I will chop off your head. Chapter 38, Reality, Comparison. Flame Body. Bang! A decorative mural on the wall broke into two halves, and one part fell down and made a loud noise, which made everyone in the office recover from the shock. Then the dead silent office suddenly went into an uproar. That was sword energy just now. It was so fast, I didn't even react. It's not a sword, it's a steel ruler. If it had been aimed directly at the neck just now, Luokan would have died before he could activate his ability. This boy is not simple. This newcomer is a bit fierce. Listening to the whispers of his colleagues in the office, Luokan, who also came to his senses, was still frightened and at the same time really furious. He pointed at Feng Shi and said angrily, "You brat! How dare you take the initiative? I think you are really lawless. Let's go. Go to the underground training ground. I have to teach you a lesson today." After saying that, he turned around and walked out first. Feng Shi glanced at the wall where she had slashed a sword mark, but did not refuse and followed him out of the office. Seeing this, other colleagues all put down their work, stood up and followed him out. They don't have much work to do, and they have very little control during work. No one cares about leaving their posts to watch the fun. Several colleagues with better relationships, such as Xiao Fan and Zhao Man, also quickly followed. However, Zhao Man pulled Xiao Fan along the way and persuaded. Your friend is too impulsive. You should try to persuade him quickly. Although he has some abilities, he is definitely not Luokan's opponent. Although this guy is arrogant, he does have the capital to be arrogant. The key is that he is very difficult to deal with. Most people it's very difficult to deal with, and if a fight breaks out later, your friend will definitely suffer. However, Xiao Fan said in a deep voice, I can't persuade him anymore. He is not an impulsive person. He is serious now. I can't stop him. I can only choose to support him. If he loses later, I will bear the responsibility with him, at worst we will be embarrassed together. Hey! What's the matter with this? Feng Shi did not hear Zhao Man's persuasion, but he could see that the official extraordinary beings watching the excitement behind him did not think highly of him. Most people whispered that Luokan would win, and seemed quite sure of his ability. However, his popularity is indeed not good. His colleagues believe that he can win, but at the same time they also use disdainful and disparaging words. Most of them are disdainful of Luo Can, saying that he is on top of the line, bullies even newcomers, and is arrogant and domineering. Sooner or later, kick to the iron plate. Sooner or later, they will hit the iron wall, but they feel that it is not this time, so this guy must have some strength, otherwise after seeing the sword that Feng Shi worn just now, he would not still be so convinced that he will not lose. Feng Shi knew what was going on, but she didn't have much thought of retreating. Mastering Noble's true damage ability, he doesn't think he will lose. After all, behind him is a powerful alien world that has developed a complete extraordinary system under the pressure of the Abyss invasion. Compared with the real world where extraordinary power has just begun, he naturally has a crushing advantage. This Luokan doesn't feel like much of a threat to him. It can be seen that his basic strength is not much higher than him, so he doesn't have to worry about realm crushing or level crushing. Then what else does he have to fear? Soon, the group arrived at the training ground underground of the building. The place here is spacious, larger than the 2 basketball courts combined, and the ground and walls are made of very solid materials. It seems to be a place specially prepared for the training, competition, and actual combat of extraordinary people. The official extraordinary people who were watching the excitement consciously stood on the edge and watched. They looked familiar. They were probably involved in it more than once and had rich experience. And Luo Can swaggered into the venue, stood in the center, and waved to Feng Shi arrogantly. Feng Shi did not hesitate, walked out of the crowd, walked into the venue, and stood facing him. Seeing his calm and composed posture, Luo Can's eyes became colder and colder. He didn't want to endure it any longer, and his body immediately burned with red flames, distorting the surrounding air. As the flames rose, his body seemed to become illusory and transparent. "Kid, I know you must think that you are very strong, and your attack speed is indeed very fast, but unfortunately, this means nothing to me. I will let you taste the feeling of being powerless now." As he spoke, he slowly stretched out his hand, condensed a flame ball from his palm, and threw it casually. The flame ball was no bigger than a tennis ball. When it was first released, its speed was average, but it flew faster and hit Feng Shi in the blink of an eye. Boom! The violent explosion causes a large amount of flames to spread, and is as powerful as a high-explosive grenade. However, such a large-scale attack failed to achieve effective results, because Feng Shi instantly leaned forward and left the explosion range. Then the steel ruler in his hand suddenly swept across, throwing out a blue arc sword light, which instantly cut through Luo Can's body and hit the wall behind, but it failed to leave a trace. Facing this blow, Luo Can did not dodge, allowing Feng Shi's sword light to cut off his body at the waist. There was no blood flowing out of the wound, only flames blazing, and it returned to its original state in the blink of an eye. When the onlookers saw this, they all showed expressions that were indeed the case. Really? With such a rogue ability, it is impossible to deal with him without targeted means. There is no suspense in this battle. Xiao Fan on the side also saw Luo Can use the completed apocalypse power for the first time. Seeing this scene, his face changed, he gritted his teeth and frowned. "This is the incarnation of the elements?" Zhao Man beside him pushed up his glasses and explained to him helplessly. Luo Can's apocalyptic power is called Red Sky Flame Lord. Not only is the temperature extremely high, but the attack power is very strong. The key is that it can completely transform his body into the element of fire, making him almost completely immune to physical attacks. Your friend's sword energy, although it is quite fierce, it obviously falls into the category of physical damage and cannot cause him any harm. Before he finished speaking, the situation on the field changed beyond everyone's expectations. But Luo Can's originally proud smile suddenly froze, and he covered his chopped waist, his face changed drastically. Hiss. It hurts. Why, it's wrong. There is something else in the sword energy. Before he could react, Feng Shi had already rushed in front of him, the steel ruler in his hand shone with sparkling sword light, and pierced his head with a sword. Boom! At the critical moment, Luo Can's body exploded and spread into a large amount of flames, which not only enveloped Feng Shi's body, but also turned into flowing waves of fire and quickly retreated. Then the waves of fire gathered again, changing back to Luo Kan's appearance and squatting on the ground, looking up at the opponent wrapped in flames. Wow! The next moment, the storm came alive, disintegrating the flame cage from the inside, revealing Feng Shi's figure again. But he saw that he was holding a ruler in one hand, and in the other hand that was originally free, he was holding an open vintage folding fan, which was covered with xinqi, forming a layer of cold cyan light to protect the fabric fan from being burned by the flames. Not only the fan, but Feng Shi's own body surface was also glowing with a sharp clear light, which prevented him from being burned by the fire just now. The reaction is very fast. The power of the flame is average. Is that all you have? Then let's end it. Feng Shi looked at him expressionlessly as he finished speaking. With one wrong step, he spun and rushed forward quickly, rolling up a fierce and mighty storm of fighting spirit. With countless cold cyan flowing rays of light, it covered Luo Kan, and with it sweeping the whole place and swallowing the world with anger. Blessed by fighting spirit, the great Ganshin. Chapter 39, Reality, the conflict is over. Damn it! How is this possible? Facing Feng Shi's terrifying battle energy storm, Luo Kan trembled all over, gritted his teeth and roared in disbelief. At the same time, he tried his best to release the red extraordinary flames, which even decomposed his body into flames and gathered into raging flames. The sea of fire is wrapping around the wind and sun. He wants to compete head-on with Feng Shi and decide the outcome. However, the moment the crimson fire waves collided with the green light storm, they were quickly torn into pieces and continued to dissipate into little sparks. There was no sense of evenness at all. Devastating and unstoppable. No! Luo Kan's painful and frightening wailing could only be heard from the flames, and then the flames were completely torn apart by the storm. A figure flew out of the flames, hit the wall outside the training room hard, and then fell to the ground weakly, like a puddle of mud. At the same time, the storm in the field subsided. Feng Shi stabilized his figure, put the steel ruler into the storage space, closed the folding fan, held it in his hand and walked towards the outside of the field. Under everyone's shocked eyes, he came step by step in front of Luo Kan and asked condescendingly. Is this lesson enough? Wow! Luo Kan, who was already in severe pain all over his body due to his injury and couldn't even stand up, finally spat out a large mouthful of blood and fainted. Seeing this, the surrounding melon eaters reacted immediately and gathered around with shouts. Quick! Here are some healing power users. It looks like the injuries are serious. Treat it quickly before anything really happens. Tisk, TSK, TSK. It's so miserable. You deserve it. Let him be so arrogant like Shintian. Isn't this a slap in the face? Just say a few words. We are colleagues after all. Get out of the way and let me take a look. Feng Shi ignored this SB who was asking for trouble, turned around and left, coming to Xiao Fan's side. He was measured in his actions. This guy just looked miserable, but he didn't die suddenly on the spot. After all, he only used a folding fan and a steel ruler that were not even considered whiteboard weapons. Their power was far inferior to the clone Feng Shi's Ma Shu. This guy's flaming body was indeed immune to most physical damage. The injuries on his body were only the effects of real injuries. It was scraped out by force. Of course, if Feng Shi really wanted his life, it wouldn't take much effort. If he had scraped just a little longer, it would have been enough to kill him. He actually thought about simply asking for his fate to be told, but he gave up the idea as soon as it appeared. After all, it was just a dispute of words, and it was enough if it caused a life. No matter how arrogant the other party was, he did not dare to say that he wanted to kill Feng Shi, but only said that he wanted to teach him a lesson. If he really kills him here today, Feng Shi will never be able to leave safely, and Xiao Fan will be implicated. It's not necessary and not worth it. As for whether today's feud will lead to revenge, that is a matter for the future, and Feng Shi has no need to be afraid. With the speed at which he is getting stronger, the strength gap between the two sides will only get wider and wider. Does he need to be afraid of the revenge of a defeated general? But then again, he felt that this guy's apocalyptic power still had potential, and its power should not be underestimated when it got stronger. He felt that such a powerful power was a bit wasted on this guy. Damn it! Madman! You are so cheating! Seeing Feng Shi approaching, Xiao Fan immediately came up to him and exclaimed excitedly. He couldn't help but exclaim. You are so strong! Tell me honestly, do you go home from school every day and practice secretly until dawn, trying hard to surpass me, just waiting to show off in front of me? Damn you, you've even our ******d your brothers, but you've our ******d me. He just found a reasonable explanation for Feng Shi's strong strength, which in a sense saved Feng Shi trouble. He replied casually, is there a possibility that he is too weak and just AF ****************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** Feng Shi shrugged, changed the subject and said, "Okay, let's end this matter. It has nothing to do with me. It's you who have to go to work in the future. Be careful of this guy causing trouble for you." Xiao Fan smiled and said, "What's there to be afraid of? I can apply for transfer when I go to college. This kind of harassment can't do anything to me." After saying that, he turned to Zhao Man and smiled coquettishly, "You just can't bear to part with my kind-hearted sister Zhao. How about Sister Zhao be transferred away with me?" It's a pity that Zhao Man is obviously a veteran in love, so he teased her in turn, "Okay. I can't bear to let you, Xiao Fan, have such a potential. Why don't you go have a drink with your sister tonight? Let's have a good chat about the job transfer, and by the way, let my sister have a good time. Does it hurt you?" As he spoke, he looked at Feng Shi charmingly, with fiery eyes, and licked his lips slightly, teasing him together. "Brother Feng Shi, please come too, sister, I don't mind. Damn. She feels so hot." The corner of Feng Shi's mouth twitched, she took half a step back and declined politely. "Sorry, I'm allergic to alcohol. I'll forget it. Sister Zhao can just take him there. He has a good drinking capacity. I have something else to do, so I'll excuse you. You two have fun. I'll leave it to Sister Zhao to close the case. Fancy, thank you Sister Zhao for me tonight." After saying that, he turned around and ran away, leaving Xiao Fan with a look on his face. He does still have something to do. After registering, he still has to pick up the bounty mission. After completing the formalities, he can go to Cloud City to participate in secret realm-related operations. There are so many people going through the formalities, I don't know how long the queue will last, so I have to hurry up. By the time Feng Shi finished the formalities, it was already noon. It happened that Xiao Fan got off work and the two reunited. "Let's go, I have completed the support application procedures. I don't need to come in the afternoon. Let's find a place to have a good meal, go home and tidy up, and we can leave for Yunqing tomorrow. By the way, come with me to pick up Ning'er from school in the evening, and you will come to my house for dinner in the evening." As soon as Xiao Fan finished speaking, Feng Shi teased, "What? Why don't you drink with your kind-hearted sister Zhao?" Xiao Fan immediately complained, "She still drinks. You don't know how good she is at drinking. Last time she said she wanted to celebrate my joining, but she drank all the male colleagues who went with her, and I even threw up." Feng Shi smiled jokingly, "The point is not drinking wine. It's so bad. You're overthinking it. She's very flirtatious, and she'll tell you to get lost. I've never heard of her actually hanging out with any male colleagues, and she's still single now." "Oh? Wouldn't that be better? I can't stand this kind of thing, I have no idea. I still think Sister Xiaotsue next door is more to my taste." "Wait a minute, isn't she a young woman? Is she already married? Hey! Isn't that better? F***K. You thief, stay away from me. I'm just making love, so don't force me to slap you. I know, you love your little green plum only. They have been running away for so many years, and you still can't let go of her. Who can be more pure than you? How many times do you want me to say this? If you hadn't mentioned her over and over again, I would have forgotten her long ago." Ah, yes, yes. Chapter 40, Reality, Xiao Fan's Talent Potential. In fact, Feng Shi really didn't feel that she could not forget the green plum that Xiao Fan mentioned many times. To him, it was just a childhood memory that was both beautiful and somewhat regretful. The other party was a girl of the same age as him, who had lived in the yard near the orphanage since she was a child. The director of the orphanage where Feng Shi is located is a retired veteran, and her deceased grandfather is an old comrade in arms, and the two have a lifelong friendship. Her parents are also active duty soldiers, and they are considered the younger generation of the dean. There is a deep connection between the two families. Because of this relationship and being a neighbor, she often came to the orphanage to play when she was a child, and she became the eldest sister of a group of children of the same age. Feng Shi also met her in the orphanage, because he was a time traveler with a mature mind and couldn't play with the little kids, but he attracted her attention. She felt that Feng Shi was too withdrawn and she was particularly caring about him. It was the first time that Feng Shi was taken care of by a little kid as a child, and she couldn't laugh or cry. During this period, many things happened that are very funny when I think about it now. The relationship between the two also gradually became familiar with her through her initiative. But then her parents had an accident during an emergency operation, and both of them died. Her life was suddenly hit hard, and she fell into a quagmire of darkness and death. For a long time, she couldn't accept this blow. The dean felt sorry for her and took care of her as his own child. Feng Shi couldn't bear it and used many methods to enlighten her. She stayed with her silently for several years and helped her. She came out little by little. It was also because of their companionship in the past few years that outsiders misunderstood the relationship between Feng Shi and her, and regarded them as childhood sweethearts. Although it is not wrong to say so, Feng Shi personally felt that there was not much between them. There are many ambiguous links, and the more important thing is that each party treats the other as family members. After all, she was just a little girl at the time. Which mature man would be tempted by such an immature little girl? He was not a pervert. As for why Xiao Fan said she had been gone for many years, of course he meant it literally. One day when she was in middle school, an aunt suddenly came to her house and wanted to pick her up. She agreed and came to say goodbye to him. When they parted, she didn't explain anything. She only said that she had a reason to leave and that she would never forget it. However, she was still too young at that time, and the child did not have a mobile phone. In the years after the separation, she rarely called the orphanage, and then gradually lost contact. Feng Shi is very open-minded about this, because he knows that life is generally like this, and no relationship can withstand the baptism of time. A person who promises never to forget will eventually be lost in the sea of people and become a memory. Feng Shi now occasionally thinks of this cute little girl who looked very unusual in her childhood. I can also clearly remember the fun childhood stories that happened when we got along with each other. I can't even help but wonder what this girl looks like now, whether she has grown crooked or has become more beautiful. But as long as there are no regrets, there will naturally be no reluctance or unforgettable feelings. So Feng Shi actually felt quite speechless about the fact that Xiao Fan always pointed out this so-called green plum to him. It was difficult for him to explain an adult's childhood feelings to a sullen adolescent boy. No matter how much he tried to explain his indifference, he would always regard it as a sign of being tough, so he simply let him have it. Fortunately, this kid only clicks on 1 or 2 sentences each time and doesn't hold on to it all the time. After leaving the Longshan Villa area, the two of them had a meal and then found an abandoned construction site for training all afternoon. Mainly Feng Shi gave Xiao Fan special training in combat skills. Xiao Fan's apocalyptic power potential is indeed powerful, and the official guidance is indeed very effective. In this month, Xiao Fan's strength has improved by leaps and bounds. Not only has he developed a variety of space-based combat moves, he has even mastered the ability to teleport. His only shortcomings now are insufficient energy caused by insufficient basic strength, and poor combat skills caused by too little combat experience. There is no way for the former and can only rely on time to practice to make up for it for the time being. For the latter, Feng Shi can help a little. During the special training, he followed Xiao Fan's wishes and began to teach him sword skills. However, in one afternoon, at most, he had some understanding of the knife skills, and it was far from even getting started. This is normal. After all, he does not have the blessing of a talent like a weapons master, nor does he even have an extraordinary profession. He is no different from ordinary people practicing swordsmanship, so naturally it is impossible to make rapid progress. Although Feng Shi had some ideas in his mind, he couldn't experiment with the lack of extraordinary source quality at present. No matter how many ideas he had, he could only keep them in his heart. In the evening, the two of them finished their special training and went to pick up Xiao Ninger to go home. While eating, Xiao Fan mentioned by the way that he would go to the scenic spots near Hangzhou with Feng Shi tomorrow. Taking advantage of Ninger's holiday, he would visit the surrounding scenic spots and relax first. This statement received the support and approval of Xiao Fan's parents, and also attracted Xiao Ninger's resentful gaze. Xiao Fan just pretended not to see it, while Feng Shi wisely left after finishing the meal, so as not to let the little girl's resentment and anger burn onto him. He believed that Xiao Fan could do this by coaxing his sister. It's not that he deliberately ran away early because of his lack of loyalty, he just had something to do at night and made some necessary preparations for tomorrow's action. Early the next morning, Feng Shi went on the road in simple clothes, carrying only a full backpack to meet Xiao Fan. When we met, I realized that this guy was even more handsome than him. He didn't even carry a bag, his hands were empty in his pockets, and he was wearing a pair of sunglasses on his face. He looked bohemian, but in fact he looked like a street kid. Feng Shi complained on the spot, "No, I don't know how many days I'm going to stay in Yincheng this time. You don't even bring a change of clothes? Don't borrow underwear from me in the next few days." Xiao Fan was very disdainful of this. "TSK. Do I still need to carry luggage? Who are you looking down on? I am also a space student." Feng Shi was stunned for a moment, then thought of a possibility and blurted out, "What? Don't you still have storage space?" However, Xiao Fan was actually surprised for a moment, and boasted with some surprise, "Oh. I love reading novels and my imagination is very rich. Can you guess this? Do you really have one? Hey. I just developed the ability 2 days ago. I used my own space power to solidify a portable space that can be opened and closed at any time. It's not wrong to call it a storage space, but it's a bit small, but I can continue to invest in it. The energy is constantly expanding, and I have put everything I need to bring inside." After Xiao Fan finished speaking, Feng Shi finally lost his composure. "Damn it. You can do this, but your space talent is really a bit unreasonable. Hee hee. Are you awesome, Brother Fan?" Seeing his proud and mean look, Feng Shi snorted coldly, took off her backpack and threw it on him. "It's really awesome. Then just help me keep it, Xiao Fanzi." Although he also has a built-in storage space on the panel, it is already filled with various weapons and hidden weapons for easy access during battle. Since Xiao Fan's ability is so easy to use, how can he waste the opportunity to use this little ****ch? Woolen cloth? You are listening to it in Eugene Light Novels.